What's going on, St. Louis soccer fans? Welcome back. Top Corner Talk underway on a Monday night yet again. Jeremy Clements back here with you for the boys on Top Corner Talk. Charlie Bilyeu going to be joining us here in just a little bit. No Oscar this week. Mo may join a little bit later. We'll see. But lots of conversation coming your way tonight on a show that's going to look a little bit different. Not only the guys that aren't here, but some of the content we're going to cover. We're going to talk about the couple losses in the last week, losses to Orlando at home, and then the kind of no-show that was in Houston over the weekend. But we're also going to dive into some salary data. The MLSPA late last week releasing salary data, so we have time tonight to jump in and look at how the teams compare in spending. You know, there's been a lot of talk on social media about cheap ownership. Is St. Louis City that cheap? The numbers don't really tell you that story, although you could make a case for cheap in one area. I won't bury the lead on that. We'll get into that a little bit later on. So again, thanks for joining us here as we again break out the city talk, and we will again, always as we do our best to get you, the listener, involved as we kick off this edition. Please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, all those things on the YouTube channel or wherever you're tuning in from tonight. But jump into the chat. Let us know what's on your mind. If you agree with what I'm saying, if you disagree, I don't mind. I'm always open to those conversations. So let's get into it tonight. So we'll kick things off with the midweek match. That was the Orlando City SC Lions coming into Energizer Park, and man, it was an ugly first 20 minutes of that game. St. Louis falling behind 3-0 at home inside the first 22 minutes before they woke up and got things going to bring it back to a 3-2 score at the break. The hosts couldn't get back in it. They end up falling 4-2 as Orlando gets another goal in the second half. That one from Marco Palisic. So the goal scorers in that game, we won't go in depth into it. It was really just a defensive mess in the first 2 minutes for City, as Ramiro Enrique opened the scoring in the 7th minute. Palisic getting his first goal just 2 minutes later in the 9th. And then Ramiro Enrique completes his brace in the 22nd. And Palisic adds his second in the 82nd minute, the nail in the coffin in that one at Energizer Park for City. St. Louis did get 2 goals at home, the goals coming in quick succession as well. Simon Betcher in the 40th minute and João Klaus 3 minutes into stoppage time in the 45 plus 3rd minute as he continued his hot scoring streak in that one. The numbers, again, honestly, outside of that first 20 minutes really weren't terrible. City was in that game, just fell behind early, did not have the start they wanted at home. And then we go on the road on Saturday night in Houston, Shell Energy Park, and lose a game in which City really didn't ever get going offensively, and by the score of 1-0, a game that really City, I considered a must-win going into it. If you look at the schedule at the table, what St. Louis City needed to do and to keep their playoff hopes alive, and then they didn't do it. There's no two ways about it. It was one of those games where you're playing a team that's directly between yourselves and the playoffs in Houston. Houston in 11th place going into that contest. City sitting 14th in the West heading into it. And it was just an effort that really didn't register offensively for City. And we'll dive into those numbers a little bit more now as we talk about that 1-0 loss. It was a game that didn't really feature much action in the first half, as the scoring was opened by Ezequiel Ponce in the 66th minute of play on a ball that really ricocheted around in the box. It was 3 or 4 crosses deep before Ponce got past Michael Wenzel and opened the scoring. I do think, though, and we'll talk about positives because there's really probably only one good thing to take away from that game in Houston. And really, if I back up just a second, one thing to take away from the Orlando game too, and that's that City fought back in Orlando. I would have loved to see that fight in Houston. As you talk through the Houston game, though, It was an interesting post game press conference too. Going back to the goal, Michael Vincel using some colorful language to describe it. I won't necessarily read it because we're not quite past that 10 o'clock hour where the FCC says we can have a little bit more freedom. But Michael Vincel saying it was not a good goal to give up, frankly, calling it a S-word goal if you can take it that way. Just an unfortunate goal, conceding, saying we have to be more ruthless and find a moment out of nothing to create something, and they just did not do it. City went into the end of the first half with just 2 shots to their credit, no shots on target in the first half, 0.16 xG or so at the break. And then again, Ponce finds the breakthrough in the 66th minute, and City doesn't register their first shot on goal until the 96th minute. So 90 plus 6 deep in the final minute of stoppage time. And City just falls 1-0 in an effort that saw them only amass 0.30 expected goals in an effort that just really left City fans wondering what is going on. You go into that match, even on the heels of the loss to Orlando, you go into that game in Houston feeling like the team is still kind of trending in the right way. We're leaking goals, sure. So the goal is to tighten up the defense, but we've been averaging 2 goals a game under interim manager David Critchley since he took over. We had come off the heels of a 4-2 loss. He also saw a 3-3 draw, a 2-1 defeat, and then a 2-1 win. So 5 games for David Critchley in charge. First time they've registered no goals, only registering 1 shot, the fewest on target in Critchley's era, and it actually matches Melberg's worst. Melberg had a couple of games where City only registered a single shot on target. City now with just 1 win in their last 16 games, folks. It is a season that, frankly, has just become extremely miserable. Romo, you're right, man. I don't have a hat, so it's a bad look for me. It's a bad look for City out here right now, as we talk about this game in Houston. Just kind of running through some of the stats, and then I'll dive into what I think was my big issue, and it's an issue that I think we've probably talked about a lot on this channel, and a lot of City fans talking about offline on social media at Energizer Park as well. But running through the stats, Houston outshoots City 18-7. City with just 1 shot on target. Houston registers 9 on target. Berkey making a few big saves to keep St. Louis in this game, especially in the second half. Houston wins the XG battle 2.45 to just 0.31. So again, a miserable effort offensively. Interestingly enough, it's the highest line City has run defensively. Their average height of defensive action, for you stat heads at home who like to look at the stats, that's your point of first defensive action where you first try to contest the ball, get an interception, break up play, interrupt a passing lane. 43.54 meters per MLS stat. That's the highest we've had under Critch. A few other things. Houston dominating the field tilt battle when you talk about everything from entries into the final third to passes in the box. It was just an ugly game. I think if I recall right, looking at the stats here, Houston had 68% of the field tilt. St. Louis City in that game not doing a whole lot offensively, mustering just 13 total touches in the box in that contest. If we talk about where City had the ball, because believe it or not, City did end up with a high amount of possession, actually winning the possession battle. That's the only thing City won statistically on the night, just 52% of the ball. So just a slight advantage for St. Louis City in possession, but they just didn't do anything with it. And most of those actions, that possession in the St. Louis City half, as that game went on. If you look at the passing data, the passing numbers for St. Louis City, they had 474 total passes, but 270 of those, more than half of them, in their own half. St. Louis with just 142 passes in the offensive half of the field. and just not able to find any link up play to get that attack going. And I think that is ultimately what my biggest issue and biggest takeaway was. If I think about this from a critical standpoint. So if you, I think we need to first have that conversation though about the lineup, right? So we go into this game. We don't have Henry Kessler. We don't have Timo Baumgartel. So your first two choice center backs. You don't have Joachim Nilsson. He's still out nursing an injury. So your top three are out. At least on the depth chart, you would consider your top three. So where does City go? They go with Michael Vincel. They go with Jake Gerwood-Reich. And we welcome Charlie Bilyeu into the program. Charlie, thanks for tuning in, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. How are you doing, man?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Sound like you got a little bit of a cold. You sure you're good?
No, I'm good. I'm
oh, there we go. There we go. Your voice is back. Okay. Charlie's back to full strength, unlike our back line. Charlie, kind of just running through a high talk on this Houston game. Mike Vincel, Jake Gerwood-Reich stepping up into that back line. What'd you think of their performance?
Frankly, I like the way they played. I think giving up one goal against a Houston Dynamo team is not a bad thing. You'd hope that you score more than one or more than zero versus a Houston Dynamo team. But just looking at their baseline stats, I think JGR played better. He had the most completed passes. He drew the most fouls, and he had the most accurate passes in a player that played more than 45 minutes. Just a great distributor. Vincel, on the other hand, nothing that really jumps out at you. He didn't get dribbled past. 7 defensive actions, 5 recoveries, 4 headed clearances. He was 0 for 1 on tackles, but a 92% passing percentage and a 6.5 FOPMOB rating. I think Vincel had a good game too for what you ask for him. Mm-hmm. Just because, I mean, you're not asking Michael Vincel to go out there and be a Henry Kessler. You're not asking him to go out there and even be a Kyle Heber. You're asking him to be Michael Vincel. And you know Michael Vincel is not going to give you that kind of performance. Or he might shock you, but I don't think he did shock you here. I think you gave him a solid performance. And then the rest of that back line, you saw the really early yellow card from Joey Zielinski. Jay Reed gets the yellow card. He leaves in the 72nd minute. It's just, I don't know. Ever since Giannis Horn left this back line, it's been out of sorts.
That's fair to an extent. I think my thing was, and I was listening back to the press conference earlier today, and Michael Vincel, saying it was his first start of the season. It's the first time he and JGR have played together outside of training. So all in all, there, not a terrible showing. It was kind of a shame. I'm just going to put it out there, Charlie. The ref was terrible. There's no way you can give both of our fullbacks yellows in the first, what felt like 15, 20 minutes, and then the same things happen for Houston on the other end, and their guys don't end up in the book. There was terrible inconsistency. I don't love the early yellows. I also don't love the early injury to Alfredo Morales. That was a game changer, too.
Yeah. So what I saw on that injury, he had the collision. Originally, they're checking out his right clavicle, his collarbone.
Mm-hmm.
When you fall on your side like that, it depends on what kind of impact you're going to get. If you land on your shoulder, you have a better chance of having that collarbone injury. If you land on your arm or your bicep, I'm talking about if you land directly onto your shoulder, kind of like he did. His shoulder and hip collided at the ground at the same time almost, if you look at the replay. Mm-hmm. When that kind of happens, you have a higher risk of having some kind of clavicle or collarbone injury, right? Whether it just be a stinger, the AC joints right there, you look at the labrum, a lot of stuff that could be damaged in that area from that kind of collision. If you land directly in your bicep, you're probably not going to have anything wrong. You see a lot of stunt performers in movies land and roll on their bicep, right? They never break their clavicle like that, but they took him out. He went back in originally, right? Then got another knock and went and stayed down, and then they take him out, which was a little peculiar. But it's the second time we've seen a potentially injured player go back into a game. In the last 2 matches, you had Timo Baumgartel with the knee injury, missing Saturday's match, right? And now you have Alfredo Morales getting removed in the 15th minute. It's worrying for sure because Alfredo was playing well up to that point. He's a guy you started, so he's obviously a guy that crucially wanted to make an impact, right? Mm-hmm. But just couldn't stay on. Couldn't stay healthy. I think that's kind of the key right now. When I'm watching training with them, when I'm looking at these things, I don't see an excess of something out of the ordinary. I'm not seeing something out of the ordinary in training. People would think with all these injuries, it might be due to training. I haven't seen that, frankly.
No, the last few have definitely been in game, and this one to Morales. I think Vincel even said post game, it changed to the game. You go from having because that defensive pairing, your double pivot, so to speak. What we've really been looking for to find stability, to find balance. That's one of my favorite words, and I think Critch loves that word too. Balance in the squad. You want kind of a defensive 6, and you want that then kind of box to box 8. And so we set up with Conrad Vollum in that kind of box-to-box, more advanced playmaker. And we had planned, it looked like at least, to have Morales play that more deep-lying 6, which was meant to help progress the ball. Because I think for as much as I liked what JGR and Vincel did defensively, you got to call it and realize they're not ball-playing center backs. They're not Baumgartel and Kessler. They're not going to have that distribution from the back line that we've seen in recent weeks. So you really needed somebody in front of them to link up and spread that ball out. And we just didn't have it. And real quick, I do want to throw Michael Vincel's quote out there. He did mention post-game. He said Houston gave them a lot of space out wide, even though before the game, City tried to or said that they wanted to penetrate through the middle a bit and find our pivots, but sometimes you have to respond to the opponent. And he said, quote, "I feel like where we definitely could have done better is taking the space and accelerating the game, accelerating the pace, and then creating through that more space." So what they're saying is they weren't playing fast enough with the ball, and because of that, Houston was able to cut out spaces and keep them from progressing into the offensive half and really into that offensive phase. Because Charlie, that offense never got going.
No, it didn't. And I don't like to point fingers, but you look at a guy. Honestly, I'm not going to point fingers because it's not one player's fault. It was just a systematic failure. No one on the offense played particularly well. Hartel didn't play extremely well. Better didn't play extremely well. I think Klaus had an all right match, but nothing outstanding. 0.35 expected goals.
Yeah, no, I mean, what's the thing that's one of the most interesting stats, and stats don't tell the whole story. What I will say, I think if you're looking for a moment of the match from City and it's not a Berkey save, there was a long dribble from Klaus in that game. That was a fantastic moment of skill from him. I was telling Mo during the in chat and things that, man, Klaus looks like a completely different player to me when you see some of the moves and the dynamic ability. But if you had to guess, Charlie, since we're talking about progressing the ball, you just mentioned Marcel Hartel. If I said who had the most passes into the final third, who do you think had that for City in this game? If you
just talked about Marcel Hartel, but I am gonna say, give me a long shot. Give me the goalkeeper. Give me Roman Berkey.
No, it's not Berkey. It is the guy that's actually taken a lot of flack online. It's Akil Watts. Akil Watts had had 6 passes in that game into the final third, leading the way for City. Marcel Hartel comes beneath everybody, not everyone, but he's way below the line. He's Klaus with 4, Kyle Hebert with 4, Jaden Reed 3, Marcel Hartel a pair of passes into the final third. Granted, he did spend a good chunk of the game in that deeper role, stepping back into the midfield. Vollum had to exit at the half, a minutes management piece, according to Critchley after the game, saying that it wasn't an injury, just that it's minutes management. So that changes the game too, because he's been in many ways your most prolific playmaker in terms of creating chances. He's like in the top 10 in MLS. I think top 5 even in shots created.
Yeah, that's true. A guy I look at, or a stat I look at too with this match, literally everything XG related, horrible. Maybe the worst of the season. Expected goals, 0.31. Expected goals in open play, 0.26. Expected goals on set play, 0.05. Non-penalty XG, 0.31. Expected goals on target, 0.14. It's rare that you see expected goals on target lower than your XG.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen that for a soccer game. I'm going to be honest. I don't think I've ever seen that kind of statistic where the expected goals on target is less than the expected goals. Have you seen it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I would say yes, because if you're shooting the ball and most of your shots are wide, your GOT is going to be lower. But I mean, still, you expect more from a team that's been averaging 2 points or 2 goals a game. Charlie, you mentioned the XG ranking. It's the third lowest XG performance this season. There were only 2 games coached by Olaf Melberg that had a lower XG than what we produced against Houston. Do you want to try to guess them, or do you want the answers?
I'll do it in a second. Just look at the shot map.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah.
Look at Houston. This is like a dartboard around a triple 20 for a pro. And this is like, I don't even know. It looks like, I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you what it looks like. It looks like mediocrity.
I mean, we were peppered. We were peppered with shots. Berkey, like I said, Berkey did a lot to keep us in this game. He won't get the recognition probably for it, but Berkey had some big saves to keep us in this game. Real quickly, I want to just add to your point there about the shot and the shot quality, Charlie. So we know we didn't have but 1 shot on target. It was, I think, a poor XG effort, according to the there's a metric about where goals come from, and it measures the quality of a chance you have, whether it's great, good, average, or poor.
It was Toykert, right?
No, I guess it was Toykert's shot. It was right at the keeper.
Yeah,
but it registered only an average XG. So that was our best chance of the night. The other 6 shots all poor XG. When you compare that with Houston had 5 chances that were better than average. They had 2 great chances. One of them was the goal, because it was literally 2 yards out. And then they had 3 other good chances in front of goal before that, and then total of 5 average shots in terms of XG. So I mean, we just didn't have anything going. When your highest goal or goals or G plus goals added plus player is Michael Vincel, that's a problem.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And I want to go back to what you were saying earlier.
Yep.
What were those 2 games? I'm going to go San Diego, the second game of the season.
Okay.
And I'm going to go let me take a look at the finals. Give me 1 second. So is the San Diego one correct?
San Diego was 0.1 XG.
Oh, geez, that's bad.
That was 0.1 somehow. But get this, Charlie. Somehow we had 2 total shots and less XG than we did on a game. Well, no, that would make sense. We had 9 shots and 0.3. So 0.1 against San Diego. The other game was a little bit later on.
A little bit later on. Was it the 3-0 loss to Minnesota on May 17th?
Nope, it was not.
Was it against Colorado again?
It was not against Colorado. I'll give
that
you
would have
one
been
more
funny
guess.
if it was against Colorado again. One more guess.
I'll give you one more. Do you want a hint?
Yes, please.
At the end of the game, João Klaus almost got in a fight with someone.
There's been a lot of those games this season. That doesn't narrow it down too much.
There's been a couple, but you would know this guy.
What was it? The Sporting Kansas City game?
No, it was Bradley Carnell's Philadelphia Union.
Oh,
yeah, we had just 0.2 XG in that game.
That's so bad. I've thought my showing me 0.16.
What is
hilarious.
this? The data that I've got came from FBref. So I hate that, by the way. You can't have just one source of truth, right? It's got to be super complex. But yeah, those are the only 2 games in terms of expected goals that were worse. Tim, you're killing me.
That is the best comment we've ever had.
That's great. Look, I'm gonna try to go. What's the dude on Channel 4?
Channel 4.
Steve Templeton. I'll go Steve Templeton.
My mom always says the sleeves are going up. It's getting serious. Oh, geez,
yeah,
that's
100%.
That is hilarious. That is the best comment I've seen doing Cop Corner. That is hilarious. Oh my gosh,
that is fantastic.
Shout out Byron Tim. Oh my goodness.
If I would have known me not wearing a hat was going to cause such a storm, man, I don't even know. But no, but guys, yeah, it was just a game. I mean, what do you take from this game, Charlie, other than the positive outing of Wenzel and JGR, who was playing center back for the first time in as long as I can remember, because he's always been a six since we picked him up.
This was the most nothing burger of a game of all time. You know that picture of it's like an older meme that went around Facebook in like 2013 or something, where it's like a burger, right? And it's got like a sliver of like cheese and meat at the front, and then the rest of it's just empty. That's kind of what the game was. I'm gonna try to find that clip, but that's what the match was to me. I thought they looked good in the first half, because I mean I thought what they were trying to do was to out physical them, set the pace, and then try to go in at the second half, and then they just never did that in the second half. I thought they looked really good in the first half because of that physicality. They were saying, if you're going to try to go through the middle like this, we're going to not let you do that, and we're going to get a yellow if we need to, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen that work before with City, not this season, but just in general. But it just didn't. The second half, this whole thing is the second half. You need to produce offensively, and they didn't do that. So,
well, no, and I think just to go back to the last stat I'm going to throw at you for this Houston game is something that Critchley has talked a lot about, is field tilt, and again 68% field tilt to Houston in this game. Just again reflective of our inability to get consistent pressure. And Charlie, I think what I take from that, or what my explanation for part of that, I kind of alluded to, JGR and Vincel are not ball playing, progressive forward playing center backs. And then that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But losing Morales hurt, because he's not the best. You know, he's not Edu Leuven. I'm not going to lie. He doesn't have that level of distribution, but he can put in a shift. When he goes out, you're bringing in Akil Watts in his place. And again, not to beat Akil Watts. Everybody else is taking their turn going at Watts across social media for some of the things he's done, including ball watching on the goal. By the way, he was standing on the spot watching, but he wasn't alone. But but anyway, he's not the most progressive player. And the other problem is who they have beside him at the moment. It was Vollum for the first half, Hartle for the second. So both are progressive players. Neither of them are going to sit back. You're not going to have Hartle come all the way back consistently, and you don't want him to. So you lose that midfield in linking up. You lose that midfield to help transition going down the pitch offensively. And also the midfield struggled to cut off play from Houston in their progression. That to me was the biggest problem. And it's been a problem. How long have we talked about the midfield being missing? It seems like all season that's been the theme.
Yeah, you're right. That's it. That you're correct. Okay, I didn't find the exact one I wanted to find, but this is kind of representative of the season for City so far. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing and then share again, and we're gonna see this funny thing real quick.
Okay. No, that's
so
cool.
This is what City 2.0 is supposed to be, right? This is what it's supposed to be, like really, really good looking sandwich, right?
We want to be the full club sandwich, right?
Full club sandwich. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of like they call it. They don't call it mayonnaise. They call it aioli. Maybe a little bit of the mayo that you call aioli on it.
All right.
$17 handheld at a millennial sandwich shop. And then so that's what they wanted this season to be, right?
Oh no.
This is kind of what it ended up being a little bit, you had the pieces, you just didn't use them right, like on paper, this team is supposed to be like pretty darn good, right? On paper, right. That's a sandwich, right? Like you got the meat, you're missing some vegetables there, but like you got the stuff to make a sandwich, but you just did it all wrong. That's kind of what's been representative of the team so far this season. If I had to use it in like a funny way, but that's just kind of funny.
No, Soccer Zombie in the chat says, I took shots because watching Akil Watts makes me an alcoholic. Tom, you might not be wrong. That's a lot of people drinking, probably on the kind of Akil Watts, or don't say Josh Yarrow. But I mean, by the way, speaking of Josh Yarrow, I do want to ask a question to you, Charlie, maybe also to the folks in the chat, the good people watching Top Corner Talk on a Monday night with me and my buddy Charlie, talking all things All for City. Where's Josh Yarrow at? I mean, so you think about it, how much did he play under Olaf? Almost a routine starter. And since Critches took over, we've seen now Vincel play over JGR. We've seen over Yarrow. We've seen JGR come in over Yarrow. We've seen Baumgartel over Yarrow. We've seen Hebert over Yarrow. Where? What?
So that might be it right there. With former, did you see that picture of Jack Grealish and Olaf Melberg in the club? Yeah. Olaf Melberg's like buttoned down like 5 buttons with the sunbird. Like you can tell he's been in Cancun or like the Bahamas or something partying. Yeah. And that's just like, I know he was there until like 4 a.m. He did not go home when Jack went home. He was there for a long time after that. Like you could tell, I think each hour he was there, one button got unbuttoned going downwards, and he was just there for like 8 hours. But I think Josh Yarrow, I don't know. We don't need to file a missing persons report. It's getting to a point with him where it's like, what's going on here? It's kind of felt like last season JGR. Like, where is he? Where's it going? You know, like what are we doing here? We got him under contract. This is almost like a Goodwill. Like, I don't even know what's going on here. Like, are we picking up a $25 pair of shoes, or are we picking up Josh Yarrow? Like, what's going on here? That's kind of what it feels like right now with Josh. I don't know if he's fully healthy. They just don't want to list him. I don't know if maybe he's just lackluster in the mind of David Critchley. It depends. And to Romo's point, where's Silva? Silva is exactly where his play is dictated he is, off the bench player. You traded for him hoping he'd be the spark for your offense, and he has been the torrential downpour to the offense's fire so far this season. In my opinion.
I mean, he did come into the game, and what was notable there, it was the first time I think he's played on the left. Normally we've seen him come in on the right, but this time it was that like for like change on the left as he replaced Celio. And we don't know exactly how much of this we're paying, but Jonde Silva has a guaranteed compensation of $629,250 per the MLSPA. So that's a substantial chunk of change. And I'm sure Atlanta's probably retained a good portion of that. It's probably prorated, but that's still not cheap on top of the fee that we paid when we did trade for him did the cash money transfer that MLS lets clubs do now on deadline day. But he had a couple of moments where he looked like he was going to create something only to be let down by the final ball. Only to see the pass go awry or not be strong enough or be right at the defender. And that's the thing that's frustrating, because you see those glimpses, right, that say, oh, there's quality there. There's a dynamic attacker there that can really get your offense going, but he's let down by just a poor moment of quality. And it's one of the most frustrating things for a team, especially in this game, Charlie, that needed an attack to get going.
For sure. I agree.
So Charlie, I don't know where we go from here. We play Real Salt Lake next. We play them at the weekend. They are above us in the table, but I do real quickly just want to give you. I'm going to give the numbers. I'm going to preface the numbers by saying, I don't think we really have a shot at the playoffs. I think the season's done. That's just me being honest. But I want to give the people the numbers just to keep us honest, because whether it's Tom or Tim or Romo or you or Mo or Kayla, whoever's on the chat who hasn't said anything, all of you guys keep me honest and call me out if I'm wrong. So City has 14 games left. Normally, on average, teams have to get around 45 points to be around 9th place. That's about a 1.3 points per game average. City, to get there, would have to take 30 points out of their last 14 games. That's 2.14 points per game. And there's only 2 scenarios that see that happen, Charlie.
Yeah.
To do that, City would have to go 9 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. Or they have to go 8 wins, 6 draws, no losses. And I'm sorry, I don't see this team winning anywhere near 9 or 8 or probably even 6 games.
Yeah, I'd say it's like you ever been to Raising Cane's?
Yep.
It's either you're either gonna get a box combo of wins, you're gonna get 4 wins. You're not gonna get a caniac. You're not getting 4 wins. You're not getting 6 wins, right? You're not getting 6 chicken tenders here. No. You're getting maybe the kids meal with 2. You're getting the 3-piece combo. You're getting the 3-figure combo with 3 wins. I mean, you're not going to run the table here. I think it's pretty obvious.
No, I mean, just running through this. So you've got 14 games left, an even split home and away. Here's the schedule. You've got Real Salt Lake away on the 5th. Then we come home to play Portland. We're on the road to Dallas. Then we're back home for Minnesota and Nashville. Then we go to Chicago and Vancouver.
That's impossible.
Accurate. I mean, it is.
Every time they get to the top, it's another setback, another ligament issue.
But yeah, so we're away to Chicago and Vancouver, match week 27, home to Houston and Dallas, then away to Montreal, away to San Jose, and then we've got LAFC week 32. We're on the road for the final time, match week 33 against Austin, and City will close out the season at home, match week 34. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the gift I wanted on my birthday, but it is a home game on my birthday, the season finale against RSL. I was hoping I'd be celebrating a positive result in a playoff qualification on my birthday, Charlie, but barring a miracle, I don't think that's going to happen. And that's part of why this game against Houston sucks so much, because if we would have won, it could have been like a 6-point swing because they're right above us in the table, or close to it, right above us in the table. Same thing with Salt Lake. You get those 2 wins, you're closing the gap, not only on the playoffs, but on the teams directly in front of you. I mean, how many times, whether it's the Cardinals or the Blues or teams, chasing, those are the games, even in the NFL, those are the games that are must win. And that's kind of what this game against Salt Lake is. Because if you win those, you can tolerate a loss against a Portland, maybe a Chicago, or even a Vancouver, since you still have to go there. So I think the hard thing is we want to avoid that wooden spoon, and we've still got about a 6 or 7 point gap, I think, last time I looked at the table between us and the Galaxy, but I don't like the idea of flirting with that, because unfortunately the Galaxy have kind of been trending in the right way, and we're not getting any healthier.
No. This is kind of how it feels. I think this David Critchley before a match. It's like, oh my gosh, the 1,000-yard stare. It's like, what are we doing now? Which CB matchup do you start? What would you start off this list?
I mean, I would have said going into last week, I think I would have, if I don't have Baumgartel, Nilsson, or Kess, I probably would have started Hebert, and I don't know, probably JGR, just to see what he's worth, because we paid $800,000 for him in transfer money. So at some point you've got to see what he can do. And you have to decide, is he going to be a part you build around in the back line, in the midfield, or is he a guy that you're just going to give up on?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, what about you? Who are you out of that list? I mean, are you going Vincel JGR? Is that where you're at?
No comment. I'd say what you're
starting Yarrow. I know it.
No, I'm not starting Yarrow. If this was Olaf Melberg, give me a Akil Watts at center back. No, I'm joking.
No, he'd be your left back, and he did play left back.
You need a big body there. Let's get Ben Lund up and going. Let's get him going there, and we'll see what happens.
That's like those EAFC shapeshifter cards in Ultimate Team, Charlie.
Yep.
But if that's the case, Ben Lund's a striker. I don't care what you're saying. He's going to be the Petter Crouch of St. Louis City on EAFC. But yeah, so RSL is next. I will admit I don't have all the numbers and the specifics on RSL, but we'll do our best to keep you up to date through our socials as we do prepare for that match. I know they are above us in the table. RSL, who have had a bit of an up and down season. They started the season kind of in some rough shape, but they've turned it around. And here lately, as I pull up the MLS table, even though this Tableau website wants to pull up for me, I can tell you that RSL in the Western Conference, they are currently just above St. Louis City. So we sit 14th in the table. They are 13th they have a game in hand. They've only played 19. So they are a game in hand. They are 4 points ahead of City with a record of 5-4-10. So it is, again, another game in which we can make up ground. I think, Charlie, what I want? I've decided, since the playoffs are a pipe dream, I just want to finish above Sporting. I think that's what I'd settle for at this point in the season.
I don't know who let me use this meme creator. I'm going to use one more last meme, I promise.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's
It seems
bad.
tempting. The bottom one seems tempting there, but
That's
I think
bad.
I'm done. That's my last one. I'm done.
No, you're
I'm
fine.
done. So what I look at here, with Sporting, as much as I hate them, they have a goal scorer.
Yep.
He's got a bad buzz cut, kind of looking like Pete Crow Armstrong. But his name's Jovic, and he can score. And I just don't see City having that kind of guy right now. They don't really have that bona fide goal scorer. João Klaus had the hat trick, sure. Do I think that's sustainable? No. Do I think he's going to score a goal a game for the rest of the season? No. Do I think that he could score a goal a game for the rest of the season? Yeah, I think it could happen. But do I think, like he is not who he was in 2023. Edu Leuven still out with the hamstring injury. All I've seen this season, and I'm just gonna say this real quick. What?
Sure.
Oh, okay. I guess. But I think what you've seen, I lost my train of thought after I saw that. I was like very confused. It's kind of just like a I don't know, like a lobotomy or something. It's just my frontal lobe stopped working. But I would say this season, I've just seen a mismanagement of player health. I'll use examples that aren't training injuries. Edu Leuven goes from no soccer activity to playing 90 minutes back-to-back weeks in a span of 2 weeks. Then he messes up a tendon in his hamstring. Okay, that's one. That seems a little odd. So it's like, I'll give you a break. Maybe you have one of those. And then you see Timo Baumgartel recently. Cannot walk on his left knee. Comes out of the game. Waves off the trainers and says, I'm going back in. Now he's out until Fatma projects mid-August. Which probably isn't accurate, but probably out for a prolonged period of time. And then you say, okay, that's fine. That's fine. 2 is a little weird, but let's look at this game. Alfredo Morales has a head injury or clavicle injury. Depends on what they were looking at. My guess is clavicle. Comes back into the game. Gets another knock. Comes out, and now he's probably going to be out for a prolonged period of time. Henry Kessler. Injured in training. Leaves, comes back. Plays 90. Gets injured again. Okay. This is getting to territory. It's like, okay, are we deciding what to do via how the players feel? Because I guarantee I've been through injuries in baseball, and I've been through physical therapy. And the one thing you want to do in that situation is get back on the field. That is the one thing you want to do, because these players love playing the game. They want to play the game as much as they want. I don't care if I was hurting the most. I don't care if I knew I was going to get injured again. I wanted to be out there on the mound, right? And I guarantee these players feel the same way. So listening to their saying of, I'm good, I want to keep going, is not smart. You look at Conrad Vollum, took a knock in training. You look at Josh Yarrow, was out for a prolonged period of time. Rasmus Alm still doesn't come back because he had the hip injury, right?
Yeah.
Then they went and said, let's give him 3 straight weeks of 70-plus minutes on City 2. And then his injury got set back again, and he's still out and not playing for City 2, for City, or even training. Okay, this is getting to a point where this is really weird. Now let's look at Joachim Nilsson. You see an injury. He comes back for 1 game, plays about 30 minutes, and does something to his hamstring again. So you say, was he really ready to come back? Definitely was not. So this season has been very peculiar because no matter what the coach is, no matter who the coach is, under Olaf Melberg it happened, and under David Critchley it happened. So far it hasn't mattered who the coach was. These players have still played injured, and they have not healed at the rate you think they would have. Do you know that clip of like WWE where the he injures something and the guy goes in the back and shoves the doctor out of the way and starts hammering his knee or something that he injured? I feel like that might it feels like that's happening. I don't know what's going on. You're not seeing this with any other team in the league. You look at the bottom teams in the league, like Toronto, you look at Montreal, this isn't happening to them. City on paper was a team that you thought would contend with Olaf Melberg before the season. Owner Carolyn Kindle was saying we are going to make the playoffs, right? And now it's almost a formality that the season is over, right? So the abundance of mismanagement that this team has endured is on the injury front is crazy, and I don't know who to blame.
It's a combination. I think it's and I don't know if Charlie, if you chalk some of it up to miscommunications in between the physio staff and the coaches, if you can chalk it up to the players not taking care of themselves off the pitch in some respects. I mean, you've got to say, players do have a responsibility in this. It's really hard to pinpoint. It's also interesting to see that, this is not a new phenomenon, right? Like we went through this last year. I mean, late in Carnell's tenure, he was playing a team that was mostly City 2 guys. Why? Because everybody was hurt. And, I struggle to understand how we have the same physio staff, like what changes have been made, if any. And again, the club is not going to come out with big pomp and circumstance when they make those changes, but something's got to be looked at because there's way too many things happening, way too many injuries recurring year after year after year after year. So Charlie, I don't know but they've got to come up with something. But at this point, the sad thing is, at this point, to your point, we're resolving ourselves to say the season is probably over. So you get to the point where now it's like, well, let's start playing some of the kids. See what we have, see who might be ready. Maybe you bring Joyner up and let Joyner just take up one of the roster spots, right?
Please.
I'm
going to talk about this real quick. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jeremy.
No,
but
you're good.
I like Brendan McSorley. I think he's a good player. But why in tarnation? Why on the Earth's green earth, right? Where the Earth's green grass? Why are we not utilizing the 19-year-old? Or is he 18? I forget. I think he's 18. Why are we not utilizing the kid who would get so much experience? I don't care if he necessarily plays bad. Frankly, I don't care if he plays bad. Because MLS experience is 10 times better than MLS Next Pro experience. It's more physical. You're playing against grown men rather than other 17-year-olds, right? That is something that I think he needs. Because imagine this. If you think that the season's already over, why not? You have nothing to lose. Then next season, if Joyner has that experience, maybe he's a key piece of the offense.
I mean, even if he's just a rotation piece, that's getting normal minutes too. I mean,
and he doesn't have a limit of call-ups.
No. I think the question I have, and I think I'm going to credit, the guys on Flyover because they talked about it on Fallout. I don't understand why Giannis Horn was even on the bench. He's already been unveiled by his new club. He's gone. Critchley said midweek, or I think it was midweek, that he was going to focus on playing the guys that are still here. I don't understand why. Where's Tyson Pierce? What's the difference? Then bring up a Tyson Pierce, somebody who's played left back at City 2.
Yeah.
Jazeel Orozco could come back up. He played left back for was it Real Monarchs, the Salt Lake MLS Next Pro team. Like, if you're like, I don't understand taking up a roster spot unless you're just trying to preserve those call-ups for later. I don't know. That's the part I don't understand when you want to talk about playing the kids or giving them a chance at a call-up, because some of it is too, like, I know they're traveling now, but first team practice, get them involved, get them familiar with that. That's going to help them develop, right? You're going to get them acclimated to maybe a higher level of competition, get used to traveling with the first team, building some of those relationships. It just seems like it would make sense, unless the plan was to give, Giannis a little bit more time with some of his German friends, which, fine, whatever. We knew he wasn't going to play, barring some massive need. He was gone. He's been unveiled by the club in Austria. I forget their name, Revervin or something of that nature. But It made no sense to have him on the match day roster. Real quick, I did just recall one thing, Charlie, that's probably going to benefit City in this game at Real Salt Lake. And that's the fact that Team USA qualified for the semifinals in the Gold Cup. They'll play in St. Louis on Wednesday, but Diego Luna is with the national team. He is Real Salt Lake's leading scorer, the only player on their roster with more than 5 goal contributions. He's their leading scorer. He's got 10. Their next joint leading scorers are Catranis and Goncalves and Marzuk at 3. Oh, by the way, it's another chance to see our lovely friend Sir Johnny Russell again. He's got 2 goal contributions for Real Salt Lake, including a headed goal against Kansas over the weekend, which was funny. He scored a header in front of the Blue Hell. That was funny. They clapped for him, by the way, which was a nice nod. I mean, he's a club legend. But the other thing, Charlie, is, believe it or not, statistically, we're actually probably better than Real Salt Lake in many ways. Strangely enough, Real Salt Lake has the 29th most goals scored, so the second least goals scored, second least XG in the league. They are 7th in goals allowed, so they're defensively they're stopping more shots, but they've actually allowed the 25th most. They've been in terms of expected goals allowed, they've been the 5th worst. They've allowed the 5th most expected goals allowed, but they've stopped more shots than they've let go in. They are 1-2-2 in their last 5. At home, they've got a losing record, just 3 wins, 1 draw, and 4 losses. And City just coming in on the road, 1-2-7. Any hope? I mean, I guess the question is since they're without their leading scorer, seeing what we saw from the back line in Houston, is there at least a slim bit of confidence going into the game against Real Salt Lake?
Is grass red?
It's not.
There's your answer for you. For me.
Okay. Fair enough. Charlie the realist.
But also, I have to look at it in a different light. I, of course, want City to succeed.
Yep.
I'd love to be there to watch them win the MLS Cup, but I won't be able to cheer when they do it in the press box, right?
Yep.
So I think what I look at in this sense is just providing information more rather than a hope. I think when you look at the actual information that we have right now from both of these teams, a Colorado team, Real Salt Lake team that is missing one of their key players, right? Versus a St. Louis team which is missing almost 6 of their key players. I mean, you could say there's hope, but I won't say there's hope just because I don't really hope for a win or hope for a loss. Of course, I'd like it for them to win, but either way, business goes on and I have to go and cover it the next day. But I think this team right now is one of the more interesting teams to cover in the MLS.
It's so. I think the way that the lens through which I'm shifting my view of this season, I don't think there's anything other to call this season other than really an abject failure from a coaching hire that went awry after 15 games and just was not right, to the messaging around that hire and then the sacking of that manager because nothing added up. The what we were told he would do, he didn't do. When he was sacked, we still didn't get anything that added up because all we were told was he said he could play a different way, but then he decided not to. So that's terrible. The results on the field have been a letdown. The development or consistency in development has not been there. We haven't seen a lot of the kids play. The man management, to your point earlier, has been a mess. We've seen injuries galore. If we've had a week with less than 4 players on the injury report, I don't remember it. So the season is a failure. So what I want to see now is I want to figure out what we're doing in the future and what's going to make me want to be excited to be at Energizer Park and to be talking about this team through the summer, through the winter, and into next spring and summer when we're playing, because we've got an opportunity for a lot of roster turnover. I think it's 10 or 11 players who are out of contract. Some have options, some don't. And we've got big decisions to make. We've got a transfer window now less than a month away. This could be a very different looking team. And I think it starts with where you invest and how you invest, because that to me is what's gonna get people excited in whole. And looking at Romo, he does say he did say earlier, I want to call that out because he mentioned the players quitting. And I want to ask you, Charlie, what do you think? Do you think the players have quit at this point? Do you think there's a lack of hunger or lack of drive in the team? Do you see anything like that in their mentality?
I don't know. Vocally, no. Like, I haven't heard anyone say, which you wouldn't hear a player say, I've given up. But their performance has shown a different light to their motivation. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I think some of the frustration, and Romo, keep me honest, throw it in the chat, because like I said earlier, I'm a man of my word. Keep me straight. If I'm misinterpreting or misunderstanding, let me know. I think I've seen a lot of folks on social media talk about Hartle and his not hustling back, his jogging back, and maybe see that as a lack of effort, laziness, if you will. Maybe there's some truth to it, and maybe I'm just being a homer and letting him off and saying his responsibility shouldn't be to defend. But if the team is built to say we defend as a team, we attack as a team, then it's hypocritical not to hold him accountable. So, but I don't know that I'd say anybody has outwardly quit. I think we were out of sorts and out of sync and a mess in Houston. I think if the team had quit, that game against Orlando would have been 5-6-0 instead of 4-2. So I can't say the team quit.
Yeah, for sure. When did Mo say he was coming?
Mo said about 10:30, so maybe a half hour or no. I mean, I know we've covered the two games. We've talked about Real Salt Lake, Charlie. I do want to dive into, if you're okay with it, some of the salary data from the MLSPA, because one of the things that oh, were you? Okay, cool. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of information that's come out in the last few days, last week. So going into the season, way back when, I think it was the first season, we were almost dead last in spending. And so there has been a lot of conversations about our ownership group, Carolyn Kindle and the rest of that group, being cheap, not opening the pocketbooks enough. And I think I don't think that that's the problem. I think it's a combination of where we've spent the money. The lack of player health has been a problem. It's all about the lack of a return on investment. So if you look, and Charlie, I don't know if it's going to let me share my screen or not. I am going to try it, and we'll see if it does.
If not, I got you.
Yeah, nope, here we go. Perfect. So hopefully it's working. You can see my screen a little bit. Here we go. Beautiful. So when we talk about St. Louis City, and this is a dashboard created by Bo McCready. It was not mine. Want to throw that out there. I did not create this, but rather than just give you the numbers, which I have, I wanted to first show you, this is a ranking of total salaries in MLS. So of course we all know Inter Miami is going to be the highest. They're paying Leo Messi over $20 million alone. So naturally, they're going to lead the way in salary, followed by Toronto, Atlanta, who put it like $50 million of investment into their team, which, by the way, that hasn't got them much of anything. So you want to talk about teams that are down bad. That's where Atlanta is. Cincinnati, the Galaxy, which, by the way, you talked about Jovic. The only reason he's in Kansas City, they couldn't afford him to stay under salary, the salary compensation. LAFC, Chicago, Nashville. Here's St. Louis. We are 13th in total spending in the MLS, a team guaranteed compensation of $18,106 and a little bit more, just under 107. So as you can see there, we are right in the middle, or a little bit above the middle, in total spend on roster in terms of guaranteed compensation. So it isn't so much that we are cheap. That's the problem. It's player health that's really killed us. One other thing, too, to just call out, I like this bit over here. So these are all individual salaries. So you can see where a lot of DP guys come in and what they're playing. Our highest, Marcel Hartl, is right here.
Yep.
So if you look comparatively speaking, I can't draw a line on it, but he's making less than Dejan Joveljic, less than Carlos Heel, a little bit less than what Chicho Arango is making. Wilfred Zaha came into the league his first year with Charlotte, making more. So realistically, I mean, we can't really complain about overpaying our DPs. Berkey is the second highest salary, and then Klaus at 1.3. So he's a DP not because of salary, but because of his transfer fee. The fee that we paid for him could not be amortized down over the life of his contract enough to make him avoid being a designated player. So I think that's a misconception. He's a DP, but not because of salary, although he is the third highest paid on the City roster. So I just think that's worth noting. Also, Charlie, real quick, I like this piece down here. So this is a breakdown.
I just wanted to talk about this real quick.
By position. Go ahead.
You look at real quick. I'm going to look St. Louis City SC.
Do you want which part? The top
no,
part?
No. I'm looking on FOBMob real quick.
Okay.
Just for a stat.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Expected goals conceded.
Mm-hmm.
First being the worst, 30th being the best. City is 5th. 33 expected goals conceded. So the 5th worst defense in expected goals. And the highest paid goalkeepers and the 7th highest paid defending core.
Mm-hmm.
So 7th highest paid and 1st highest paid for the 2 major defending categories, and you're the 5th worst team at defending. One thing that sticks out to me here, Joachim Nilsson making 100 or 1.255
at 1.225 mil.
1.225 mil. I don't know why Totland his names is Conrad here, but so Conrad Totland, I guess. Giannis Horn, he'll be off the book soon. Josh Yarrow, Tyson Pierce, Michael Watts. That's one. That's a good one. Michael Watts. Yes. And then Wenzel.
Yeah.
But you look at the teams near them, San Jose. Where San Jose is on this list, they're actually a little bit worse than us. So another team that they're 4th worst in the league in goals against, or XG.
Mm-hmm.
Against. You look at Vancouver, they're pretty darn good defensively. Vancouver, I have to scroll all the way down to 29th. They are the 2nd best team in the league defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And they're spending a lot. So you would think the more you spend, the better you would be, but it's how you spend the money. You look at guys like Joachim Nilsson, he's had little to no impact, and you're wasting away $1 million.
Well, and so, yeah, so just looking at the injury list, talking about return on investment, St. Louis, if we just use the players who are either out due to injury or missed last week for personal reasons, Edu Leuven, last week on the injury out list, it was over $5 million of guaranteed salary. Over 31% of the team's guaranteed salary, if you took their yearly, was out last week because you were missing those big name players. You're missing Henry Kessler, 1.3 million. You're missing Joachim, 1.25. You were missing Baumgartel, 643K. So you're missing some substantial money on that list. I mean, Michael Wenzel's making the league minimum at $80,622. But the one thing that's interesting, you mentioned Vancouver, because my point was, you look at where we're spending our money, right? So St. Louis by total guaranteed compensation, spending the most in the league on goalie. And I'm not going to be mad at that because Berkey's been fantastic. He was a goalkeeper of the year. He's been an all-star and he's been very good. Defensively, you got to have more return on investment. You're spending over $5.2 million on your defense. Where's your return on investment? Your midfield this year. Granted, over 1 million of that is on Leuven, who's been missing, and I'm not going to knock Leuven. He's doing what he needs to do and being where he needs to be. But you've invested a lot of money in your midfield, including $2 million on Marcel. Where's the return in investment from that outside of Marcel Hartl? Hartl, I'm not going to fault. Look, Hartl has produced the 4th most scoring chances created in MLS. His return, and he's played a large chunk of the year in positions that don't suit him, because frankly speaking, he should not be a center mid. He's not a 6. He can play an 8, but he doesn't need to be an 8. He needs to be a 10, either in the middle of the field or where he was really effective at times off to the left. And I know we want to see Celio. I love Celio, but maybe it's time, if you want to bring balance back, because Betcher's not a right winger. Maybe it's time to put Hartle out left, get Toiker going by putting him back as a 10 in the middle, and put either Silver or Pompeu out right. You can do that. That way you have Betcher on the bench. You can rotate Klaus. I don't know. You've got to quit. Your sandwich meme earlier was perfect. It's like fitting a square peg in a round hole. We've been doing it all season, in part largely due to injury, but we've got to figure that out. And, going to real quick, attack, that's where City is. We're like 25th in the league spent in attack. 1/3 of that is Klaus at 1.3 mil. Yep. You look at Vancouver, you mentioned, they've spent the second least. Talk about a return in investment for Vancouver. Just over $2 million. Their highest paid striker is making $1 million in Brian White. Emmanuel Sabi, almost $1 million.
That's like $1 a goal for Brian White. Of course, that's hyperbole, but geez. Could you do me a favor, Jeremy? Could you zoom in? Could you see you can zoom in on defenders for St. Louis? Could you do that, please?
What
defending for St. Louis?
Like here?
No, you can actually just press St. Louis on the left. Go ahead and press that. Double click it. Keep only.
Okay, hold on. Hang on.
Keep only. Boom.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Now you can see where. So go ahead and go to the defenders. Henry Kessler. That's a good deal.
Yeah.
Henry Kessler is a good player. He is I think your best center back when he's healthy. Go right one. Joakim Nilsson, second highest paid. When you signed Joakim Nilsson, he had a knee strain, a meniscus injury that caused him to be out for a good chunk of time, and then knee surgery, a rib fracture, and then muscle injuries and knee surgeries throughout his City career. So you knew as soon as you signed him, he had knee surgery. Mm-hmm. As soon as you signed him, that had to be disclosed in contract negotiations. You can't hide that you had an injury. There's a physical you go through, right? And during that physical, they were like, oh, you need a serious knee surgery. You're going to be out for almost the whole season. So he was. So it's like, okay, that's a little weird to start off with a contract with a large injury. So he was already damaged goods when you got him, right? Go over one on on those players. Timo Baumgartel, good contract. That's a steal in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Nilsson. So here's the thing. The one thing I want to say about Nilsson, and I'm going to credit. I'm going to be honest. I don't know the guy's name. He's in the Chat City Tactics Discord. It goes by Transmorgified Tiger, I believe is his username. Brought up a really good point, because a lot of people, including myself, Charlie, have said, why are we not buying this man out? What are we doing? Well, the earlier we buy him out, there's two things. One, if somehow he gets healthy and he proves useful, maybe we can find somebody to buy him and take some of that salary off. Or even two, if we get to the end of the season, when we buy him out, it's going to cost less money. And you want to save your GAM and your TAM for future roster build. So maybe that's why we're just letting him ride it out. But I wanted to give him credit for that, because that's not my thought. That was his explanation there. But yeah, Baumgartel, couldn't agree more. Super steal.
You know, just take a guess. How out of the players, how Marcel Hartel is the highest paid player. Where do you think Joakim Nilsson ranks?
Joakim's in top 5. He's probably fit. Well, hold on. So it's let me think here. So we know Hartle, Berkey, Klaus, Leuven. I think Nilsson's 5th. Is that close?
It goes Hartel, Berkey, Leuven, Klaus, Toikert, Kessler, Nilsson. 7th highest paid player on the team.
Yeah, okay.
And he has played 6 matches.
Yep. And just for sake of getting it out there, looking at Transfermarkt, and again, I'll Transfermarkt does know it is not necessarily 100% accurate all the time, but I do think it's worth noting that, speaking about Joakim Nilsson, he has missed, and they're saying 8 games this season, but that seems low to me. but they're crediting him with 25 missed over the 24-25 season, 7 missed the season before that, and 26 before that. So I believe at last count he had missed in the realm of over 75 games for St. Louis City since joining the team.
That's 58 games. Yeah.
58. Okay. Either way. No, you know what? It was over 70 if you add him and Alm together. That's what it was. So yeah, so he's missed 58 games. For a guy that's making $1.2 million over that, a guy that I think when we signed him, was he not one of our original designated players? I thought it was. Yeah, so, or at least up there in that realm. So, yeah, I mean, it's just been a miss. Now, look, I'm not going to say that this is a Lutz failure because honestly, before this, he had in his career only missed 9 games in his career.
Yeah.
So he had been extremely durable over the course of his career leading up to that. It's just he's gotten hurt and never gotten healthy again, to your point, Charlie, earlier. So other guys that are on this list, Pedro's coming off the books. Conrad, Vollum, I don't know why, or I think that's supposed to be Totland. I believe that's Tot's salary.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great deal in my mind. You know, that's a solid contract for Tots. Giannis Horn, he's off the books. Kyle Hebert, that's not terrible. That's not a terrible salary playing probably a 3rd or 4th option center back. Yarrow, Yarrow got a big increase from year to year. As I did crunch the numbers. His salary went up from last year at the end of the season. He got a $95,000 raise in guaranteed compensation, Charlie. I'm going to stop sharing this screen to see if it'll let me share something else really quickly. Bear with me for just a second. We'll see if it will let me share Excel. It is not going to cooperate, but that's okay. So like if I looked at your guys who got the biggest year over year increases, Kessler got a $300,000 raise. Don't mind that. That's fine. Toykert, $250,000. I'm not terribly upset about it, but Josh Yarrow, the 3rd biggest increase in yearly salary. He went up from $109,000 last year to $204,000 this year. And he is a free agent. So there's at the end of the season. So, that is an interesting decision that's going to have to be made as City's going to have to shore up its back line. I am curious too, just to throw out there, Charlie, as we talk about spending, that dashboard didn't have a positional grouping or a classifications breakdown. Romo, do I think Berkey's going to resign? I'm on the fence.
We'll see. Only time will tell us that. So, Jeremy, before you start real quick. So, I did the calculations. 58 games missed for Joakim Nilsson. Right? Yep. And that times 90 is 5,222 minutes. Plus extra time would be closer to probably 530 or 5,300, right?
Okay.
You know the 10th highest grossing film? My favorite movie of all time. The 10th highest grossing film in 2014. Take a guess.
Charlie, I'm not a movie guy.
The best movie of all time, Interstellar.
I've never seen it.
Has a runtime of 2 hours and 49 minutes. The longest movie that has grossed that amount of money.
Is that longer than he's played all season? I'm kidding.
You could watch, instead of watching the games that Joakim Nilsson missed, you could watch Interstellar 30 times instead of watching him not play. Just a little fun fact. You could watch the longest movie that one of the longest movies that has grossed a lot of money like that 30 times.
Yeah, that's insane.
And that is a number of hours. 87 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 87 of hours of City SC games that Joakim Nilsson is nowhere to be found.
Well, he hasn't been found for a while. I want to go back to Romo for a second. The Berkey question. I think I want to ask you this in response. Charlie, feel free to answer. Romo, anybody else as well. when it comes to goalies, we already just saw St. Louis is paying more money to goalies than anybody else in the league. Is that where you want the club to invest? Because granted, maybe he'll take a pay cut. I doubt he'll take a pay cut. But is that where the club should be spending its money? Should we be allocating our money to a keeper? Or do we need to go and say, let's go get a right winger, a true six, a true goal scorer, let alone not a knock on Klaus, who's been in good form recently, but not a prolific scorer. Teuchert's not a prolific scorer. Hartel's not a prolific scorer. So that's how I frame that question. Would I love Berkey back? Of course. I've got three kits with his name on it. Of course I want Roman back. But I have to wonder what the plan is for the club from a financial perspective. I mean, return on investment wise, Berkey's one of the best you've had. Like I said, goalkeeper of the year in 23, an all-star, has been phenomenal. But I just wonder, where do you allocate your money if you are, you talk about Vancouver. Vancouver is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Vancouver spends the eighth most money on goalkeepers with Yohei Takaoka at just under $875K. You look at some of the most successful teams in the league, and they're all spending on keepers. I mean, Pedro Galice in Orlando City, Ustari for Miami, Andre Blake for the Philly Union, Patrick Schulte, the St. Louis guy, he's making just under $1 million, $957,000 for Columbus Crew. Even Christian Kalina, and that he probably got a pay raise, but he's making just under $800K. So I think you've got to invest in a keeper, but do you invest to the tune of $1 million or more? I think that's the question. And then what will Berkey take?
My answer is not how much you spend. It's not who you spend it on. It's how many players you spend it on. The distribution of that pay. I'm going to take a look at the midfielders here. I'm going to share my screen with the same thing. Take a look at the midfield. You can see a lot of them, you're paying one guy a lot more than everyone else. Of course, with Miami, it's Busquets, because, of course, it's Busquets. With St. Louis, you're paying Hartel the most, and then Leuven, close second there. But look who is paying almost the most amount of players equally is Philadelphia, right? And they have one of the best midfields in the league. Okay, let's look at Philadelphia again. Okay, one player getting a chunk of that, and then look how many players are making the same amount of money. Okay, let's look at Philadelphia again. Okay, you got some big guys here, but they're almost all making the same amount of money. Let's look at the keepers for them. Okay, we got Andre Blake, and then everyone else is making the same amount of money. Okay, so you look at the best team in their conference right now, right, is Philadelphia. Their spending is equitable. You look at St. Louis, let's look at their midfield. Okay, Marcel Hartel, Edward Leuven are almost half of the midfield you're taking, and Hartel's been below what you expected him to do this season, and Leuven's been injured. Okay, let's look at their defenders. Maybe it's a little bit better. Oh, okay, so Joachim Nilsson is taking a huge cut of the salary rather than one of the best defenders on the team. Let me find him. Totland, who's making considerably less, right? So it seems a little lopsided. So, okay, let's just look at the keepers. Of course, that's going to be that way. Okay, let's look at the attacking crew. Okay, St. Louis is right here. Okay. Teuchert, and then one of your best offensive players is making a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a all right offensive player, and then a guy who has played barely for your team is Jean de Silva. I think it's more of an issue. Look at the best teams, excluding Inter Miami, because they spend a ton of money, and Toronto, because they are just done with their money. If you look at the best teams, a lot of them are spending equitably. Look at Cincinnati. They have a core of players that are spending almost the same amount of money on. It's equitable spending. I think that's what City needs to do. It could be correlation. I could just be looking at numbers and being a dummy, but I think it could be a little bit of causation. When you don't take a risk, I'm going to look at another sport real quick. NHL. Look at the National Hockey League. Toronto Maple Leafs. They spend $46 million on their top 4 players. They never made it past the second round with those players. Then that core is gone now. Mitch Marner's got traded. You look at the Blues. Top year, they're a pretty good team now, right? Their top 2 players are making the same amount of money. Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. You look at the Florida Panthers, 2-time champions in a row now. They've made it 3 times in a row, going for a 3-peat next season. Their top 4 players, and Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Aaron Ekblad, and Sergei Bobrovsky, they're all making a similar amount of money. There's not a huge gap between who is making the most and who is making the least. It's not one of those charts of like the top earners in America where you see the billionaires here and then it just drops off, right? It's almost like a stepping stone. You get the top highest players here, and then you kind of slowly go down. It's not a quick decrease. You're not paying one player a ton and then underpaying the rest of the people. You're paying them almost equitably. And that is how teams have succeeded historically in sports, especially in soccer, just based off of how Philadelphia has been doing this year. I think the thing you need to do here is pay equitably. You don't need to have one player, because I think it's risky. If you have one player or 2 players that you're paying the most, and then those players miss time, like Joakim Nilsson or like Edu Leuven, then what's going to happen? That's almost $3 million in dead cap that you're not using because of those players being injured.
Well, so to your point, the highest paid midfielder for Union is Danley Jean-Jacques. He's making $600,000. 650 is his, or 652 is his guaranteed compensation, but he's a defensive midfielder. They've also got Jovan Lukic, who's making 330. So they've got a few guys that are making, some decent money, comparable to probably a Thomas Totland type level of salary. But by and large, I think Charlie, if I think about roster spend and breaking it down, that's kind of what the MLS wants you to do, though, is because they have the 2-player models, whether it's a DP model or your U22 model. They're wanting you to build your roster by doing a combination of spending big on 2 or 3 people, and then you build your roster out through those lower cost contracts, and a lot of that's through development. I won't pretend like I'm in depth knowledge of the Union, because I'm not, but I do know that they've had one of the better development academies in the MLS for years. It's a little bit down now from what I understand. And that was part of what led to Jim Curtin's exit, was the Union wanting to stop spending big and starting to get back to their roots of developing players. And Curtin didn't like that. That's what I've read was part of that issue. But to your point, Charlie, they've done very well with a fairly balanced roster spend across the area. I can tell you, just for sake of conversation, where City is in terms of like comparison. So right now, City for this season, I need to find my pool here. So if we're talking about the Union, since that's the topic of conversation at the moment, so the Union have outspent City. Why did my spreadsheet break? Never mind. I can't do that. I apologize. The fun of doing things live doesn't always work. So City's total spend on attack was just under $4.5 million. The Philadelphia Union, they are, it says 14 mil. That can't be right. I will have to work on my spreadsheet because it is not matching what we're seeing on the screen. But to your point, the Philadelphia Union, Charlie, on attack, they spent $500,000 more than we did on attack. So they are $500,000 in the red compared to City. In the midfield, City, you already went over $6.5 million in the midfield alone. Philly, half that, just over 3. The defense, again, City's at 5.2, Philadelphia's at just over 4. Goalkeeping, we're similar. We're both over $1 million, but we're about 500,000 more. So Great disparity, but Bradley Carnell's got that team built very, very well.
Yeah, for sure.
But as we hear, it says Mo in the chat says he's coming soon, so we can hang tight, see what Mo has to say. But no, Charlie, it's been a very interesting look at the roster. I guess the question I have for you is if you are City, so you're going into the offseason, you're Carolyn Kendall, you're Diego, you're Lutz Pfannenstiel, you're making the roster decisions. What do you think City stays with this U22 model, or do we go back to the 3 DPs? And if we do, what positions do we target? What are your top 3 areas of need?
You talked about it earlier. I'm going to bring it back about the 20th minute of this podcast when we talk about the game, the match that in Houston. One of your players in your double pivot went down. You haven't had a consistent double pivot. I'd like to find a midfielder. I think, of course, you talked about the midfield already and how it's the highest spent. But I don't think Marcel Hartel should be consistently in the midfield. You talk about his defensive woes, then move him up. Move him up to attacker. I think a guy like Edo Leuven could also do that. I think you need a distinction between your defensive midfield and your attacking midfield. That's why I think the 4-3-2-1 system works better than a 4-4-2 or the weird 5-4-1 that Olaf used. Or 3-2-4-1 if you want to be specific, but it was just 2 wingbacks. But what I think is you need a distinction. You need a utilization of these players differently. And you need a midfielder that can actually be a fluid defensive, box-to-box player. I don't think you have a box-to-box player right now. Maybe João Klaus, but you shouldn't be asking your 9 to do that.
No. You
should not be asking your 9 to be a box-to-box player. That's not what a 9 is for. What my 8 or a 6 doing that, especially maybe at 8, right? I think I'd go get a dynamic midfielder, not from the Bundesliga too, and change that to 3 DP player or the 3 designated player structure. And obviously utilize Makai Joyner. I think a guy like Makai could bring a huge spark. And since Mo's coming soon and it's getting a little late for me and I got some stuff to do in the morning, I think I'm going to depart for now. Appreciate you having me. Of course. Sorry for being a little late. Sorry for leaving a little early. Good talking with you, Jeremy.
You too, Charlie.
Have a good one, y'all.
All right, man. Cool. All right, we'll hold on the fort till Mo comes in. Thanks, Charlie. Again, Charlie Bill U. Check him out. Utes Media is where he's writing a lot of great coverage of City. His pieces there. Also on X, Charlie B. You can see his handle there, keeping everything up to date, doing a great job getting the quotes out there for the press conferences and all his stuff there. So give Charlie a follow, a like, a thumbs up, and yeah, he's up and coming. And what you got? Looks like
also new job coming at a radio station soon. We'll see what happens there. All right, have a good one. That's all I'll say for now. Have a good one.
All right.
Adios.
All right, thanks, Charlie. All right, so that was Charlie Bilyeu. Again, Jeremy Clements still rocking out with you here as we roll through the night on Top Corner Talk and keeping the conversation going. As Romo says, mop has dipped. We did, that's funny. You dip the mop in water. But Ryan Fraley, you're here. Ryan, thanks for hanging out as well. We're still hanging out waiting for Mo. Tim, not sure if you're still in chat, but we appreciate all of you guys. Kayla as well in the chat all night long, keeping the conversation going, keeping us in check, and giving us your thoughts. You know what? As we wait for Mo, I'm going to open it up. Anybody have any questions? Anybody got any hot topics? What would you do if it was your decision? Where are you targeting it? Charlie kind of mentioned switching back to a 3 DP roster. I don't hate the idea. I think it really depends on where City wants to turn their focus. If their focus is in development and they really want to commit to playing the kids and saying we need to develop talent and see what we have in the pipeline and start to move those kids up, you stay with the U22 model and you go that route, maybe open the door there. If you don't go that way, and then you want to switch back to the 3 DP model, that's fine too. That means you're spending now. I kind of look at it this way, and my take could be way off because I'm sure we've seen teams be competitive in both models for long periods of time. I look at it as saying, if I'm going the 3 DP model, I'm going all out, I'm going to spend big. That's kind of my short term, I want to win now model. That's my perspective. Whereas if you think you have a longer window, maybe you've got youth coming up, your development system is starting to turn out players, you can use those U22 mechanisms. Also the thing that comes with the U22 model is an extra $2 million in GAM. You can't hate on that. I mean, that's partly probably what allowed us to make that move for Jean De Silva, or maybe buy down Berkey from a DP, because we knew that's what was coming, and we could recoup the money we're going to spend buying down his contract into doing that. The other piece too, as part of the conversation, as we talk about roster turnover, Klaus is a DP. There is a route in which we can bring him back as a TAM player, and that might be the move. In fact, I think it is the move. I think if you're going to bring Klaus back, and he's not playing so poor to me that you don't entertain the conversation, but you bring him back as a TAM player, then you could stick with the U22 model and go out and get a DP player, whether it's a striker or a prolific goal scorer to put alongside him, or it's let's say a winger, someone who's going to go out and change the game. Who were we going after? There were a lot of people who wanted Leo Campagna was an example of a guy. The player that went to New England, he played for Miami as well. His name escapes me at the moment. But those dynamic playmakers are the kinds of folks that we want. I know Oscar has said in the past, he's listed off several players from South America, Central America, those kinds of talents, those kind of dynamic players that could bring more flair to the team, more speed to the team. I wouldn't be mad at seeing that either. I think it's time to try to figure out what this team is going to be moving forward. And then what are you going to build? What are you building to with a manager? You have to bring in a manager. That's the other piece of this puzzle that we haven't talked about at all tonight. Critchley is appointed the interim manager for the rest of the season. That's old news. But what are we going to do? Is Critchley going to be the guy at the end of the season? That's still yet to be seen. 1 win in 5 so far. Not convincing me. Is he part of the conversation still? Sure. Could we go on a run and he becomes a slam dunk for it? Sure. I agree with not rushing to a decision, but I think you've got to have something in mind as the transfer window opens. I think you have to have a vision, because we can't go to another season where we've got a manager that doesn't fit the roster or vice versa. You have to have these things in sync with a determined manager who's got a single play style that can be flexible and is open to changes. That's the one criticism that I do have of Critchley so far. Yes, we've seen players move around, but it's all been the same formation. I don't think we've seen enough willingness to change. There was one thing he said, and I don't want to go all the way back to the beginning of the show when we talked about the Houston game, but he did mention, he's like, our plan was to go through the middle, but we lose both sixes by the half, and it changes things. Well, what changed? Because just frankly, to the eye test, not a whole lot. We still struggled. I mean, there's a reason we still didn't get a shot until 90 plus 6. We were in like the final minute of the game before Toykert finally got a shot on goal. So I don't know what the answer there is. Tim, you mentioned in the chat earlier, I don't want to lose sight of it. We probably did, but I apologize that Toykert's gone missing. And I don't know for you, I don't know how we fix that. For me, it's a matter of positioning. I don't think he's a winger. He's never been a winger. He needs to play behind the striker or alongside the striker. And that's why I said earlier, for me, if we're going to stick with the 4-3-2-1, as much as I love Hartle in the middle, push him back out left, put Toykert where he was successful as the center 10 under Klaus, and that way Hartle has freedom. He can be dynamic and move around, get that expansiveness that Critch says, but you're putting Toykert back in a spot where he scored goals last season. Mo, welcome, man. How are you? Tell me how wrong I am. The chat's been doing it all night.
I don't know. If you're watching FIFA Club World Cup, I can tell you it is.
Hey, man,
the world is burning.
The Club World Cup has been entertaining. I haven't gotten to watch much of it, but the bits I've seen, there's been some entertaining matches. There was a game the other day. I watched part of it. It was the 2 Brazilian teams. Was it Fluminense and Palmeiras? I think played each other. That was a fun game. I think that was the other day. That was one of the.
Give me 1 second. Looks like I might have.
Sure.
Technical difficulties.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you, but yeah, sort yourself out. We'll talk Club World Cup. Anybody in the chat watch the Club World Cup while we wait for Mo to get set up. And Romo, yeah, I mean, I didn't know where we sat with spending. I knew it wasn't last. But I'm glad I am really thankful that the MLSPA puts out those numbers now. It's only the second year that they've done this where they give us that level of transparency to see what the compensation levels are. So we have a better idea of what our clubs are spending, right? Like that to me is invaluable as a fan. And even as somebody who's trying to break it down to understand where are our discrepancies, where are our differences. I look at where City is spending their money. The league average, if we talk about just going back to spending for a second, and I'm probably beating this into a dead horse, and I apologize, folks. City right now, on average, the average MLS team, and this is inflated by Messi and other folks that are being paid a lot, but we're about $4 million under the league average for an attacking player. We're overpaying by a little over $1 million in the midfield, overpaying on the defense by $731,000 on average, and paying over $1 million on average on goalkeepers. So we are spending in total. Our guaranteed compensation is still under the median line. The median team spend is just over 19 million. We're just over 18. So it's about $1 million difference. But it's where you're spending the money. And the biggest thing is the return on investment that you're getting. And that's what I think Charlie and I broke down earlier. We're using Joachim Nielsen, who's $1.255 million contract, but 58 games missed. All right, Mo, are you back? You're back. We got you.
Sounds like you guys were having some very interesting discussion.
But back to the Club World Cup. You were talking about that when you first came on.
Yes, Al Hilal is, from last stat check, winning 4-3 against Manchester City.
Ooh.
So it's going to be quite interesting if it holds. But also, yeah, it's quite interesting. But I think there will be a lot of questions, or I don't know if everybody's been watching, but the whole fraud alert, because European teams are being beat by other football world teams. So it's quite interesting on the formation of it. But if you have not watched FIFA Club World Cup, you should. So,
Mo, you've done a number of watch-alongs, and I want to get your thoughts on some of the City stuff. But since you brought up the Club World Cup, I want to pick your mind on a couple of things.
Yes.
Because there have been a few things that came out. So you just mentioned Man City. So today, Pep Guardiola came out and said that this Club World Cup is not an ideal competition, that it's killing his team, that the players can't do all of this in one season. What are your thoughts in hearing what Guardiola says?
He's right. Yes. But I think we kind of find ourselves now in this new football world that money speaks a lot for a lot of clubs. But also and I think it almost differs on which team you're referring to, right? So they have a lot of, like Manchester City, for example, they do have had sort of a long season, but also they are very well paid. But if you think about it, at some point, all of the teams that are doing well now are benefiting from having all eyes on them, which they typically do not have, right? So the Auckland, right, all part-time players from Australia, winning, scoring goals. That's a story that will help their country in the long run. Watching Al Hilal, currently beating Manchester City. Yes, there's people that will call it like a fraud alert in others. But from what I can tell is that if you put 11 players that have something to prove, 11 players that says this is my ticket maybe to another team, or now the whole world is watching us, I will take those 11 players because they will put everything on the line as the Brazilian team have done, right? Al Hilal is doing it now, but then people kind of forget that Al Hilal has spent a lot of money. They have players that probably will be DPs in MLS anyways, or Al Hilal will probably beat 99 or maybe all of the MLS teams.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I mean, the money, the Saudi league, along with Al Nasser, Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, they had N'Golo Kante years ago.
Yep.
There were rumors flying. I think that someone was going to buy Mo Salah. There has been a ton of investment in that league to try to raise the profile of that league, and the Saudi league. I will say, for all of the money they've spent in to that, just in this little, I'm going to share my screen for just a second. This speaks to what Ryan Fraley was talking about in the chat in terms of the difficulty of the league and who's going to win what, Mo. So Opta, the data company, did a rankings for the of the league average team power rankings. And so the Premier League set around the top, followed by Serie A, but the Brazilian league is ninth, right above the Eredivisie in the Netherlands. So you can put some respect on their name. They've got a few teams in the semifinals. The MLS is down here in, I think, 12th or 13th, right above Liga MX. But Liga MX still has a team in the competition. They've still got Monterrey in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and I think that's the part where the whole and Al Hilal just beat Manchester City. So that we just imagine, right? This is just one club that pretty much represent an entire country now. They have kids that will be watching these 23 players will be talking about that for the rest of their life, that in the biggest stage in club football, we've just beat Manchester City, who technically is our cousins because they're owned by Qatar. So there's that money there. And they all are spending money. I mean, let's not get that confused, right? It's just that their league has decided that the better way at this moment to keep up with everybody is to spend all of the money that we already have. If the MLS had the same type of money, I can guarantee you they will be doing the same thing, but they have their restrictions.
Well, and that's the whole other conversation, right? About the silly roster rules and the salary cap, because no other league in the world has these roster mechanisms that say you can have 3 of this and 2 of that, or 2 of this and 4 of those. It is silly.
So they had it in the history before. They did have those rules where you were able to only have 3 European 3 players from outside of the European Union, right? So they did had those rules, and those rules still changes as well, where it says you need to have your homegrown players in your thing. You need to play 10 something like that from your country. So those rules are there. It's just that MLS had to protect themselves, which makes sense. It's just that and I think the whole forced parity, like Ryan says, this is not a summer league, right? They're not kids, they're grown men being paid. Yes, there will be teams that will win a lot of the leagues because they can spend it. But there are those stories like Leicester City, right? They did win a championship, even though it was a while back, but they did win one against the big boys. It's just on who wants to put what. MLS, yes, have put all these restrictions, and tying it back to what you guys have shown, all of the players and what it cost and others. Yes, I think we'll be lying if all of us says that we want our team to spend all that money, right? But also is that if the players would not perform like we want them to, then we'll be like, oh, we're spending all that money, but we're not winning.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I think, like I was kind of talking to Charlie about, Mo, it's return on investment, because you can spend, like, if Miami, right? So Miami is the highest spending team in the league. They've got and most of that money, Messi, Busquets, and Alba, the big three, right? The three Barca legends. If they had done that and it didn't work, and they didn't win some kind of trophy, a supporters shield, qualify for the Club World Cup, qualify for the Champions Cup, if that hadn't happened, could you imagine they would be running David Beckham out of Miami?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the thing is, but as you can see what PSG did to them, then you raise at the question, right? So I think it's just that part where, yes, some teams are spending a lot of money, aka Toronto, but there's no success there.
Yep.
What we're getting from our side of the world is that I think we became too successful too early, aka just one season. And now there's an expectations that we should make it to the playoff year in, year out, and that we're already expecting to spend money very quickly. You know, it's easy to say, hey, let's spend some money, but where are you going to spend that money at?
Well, and that's actually that's the other question I had for you is kind of before, as Charlie was hopping off, I was asking him, if you're Carolyn, Diego, and Lutz, you're the brain trust of City. Where are you spending the money? Because there's going to be roster turnover. There's going to be money up to spend. You would think, you would hope, with just looking at the names coming off the contracts. There's potentially $8 million or more coming off the books, depending on who's re-signed and who's extended. So, where do you spend your money, Mo, if you're the guy making the choice?
Midfield, 100%. I think that's where we need a little bit more creativity in the mid, so that we're not relying on either defense or offense to carry us for 90 minutes. From what you right, so all throughout the season, you see the up and down hill, or at first we're praising the defense, and then after that we're talking about the offense not scoring goals, and then as the offense started to scoring goals, then the defense started to dip down a little bit, and then it gets so it's this unbalance of, oh, the defense is not doing their job, their offense is not doing their job, but we're missing the connection in between, which is the midfield.
No, that's fair.
And it hurts to say, but yeah, the Houston game was the perfect example where there was no connection between the defense and all the way to the offense, because the transition was not there whatsoever.
No, it wasn't. And so let's talk about that for just a second, since you didn't get a chance to join the conversation on the Houston game. I agree. Whether it was that, and I don't know how much of it you attribute to, Morales going out, because if you think about that, just offensively, right? We have our center backs were Wenzel and JGR. They're not ball playing guys. They're not going to be the guys belting long balls forward like Kessler and Baumgartel can do. So you need a true six there. And that's what Morales' role was supposed to be. Watts isn't that. Hartle isn't that. Vollum isn't that. I mean, how much do you think that injury really changed what we could do in the midfield against Houston?
I think it may have changed a bit, but we still know that Morales is also a little bit more of a CDM than, a creative center midfielder too, right? Yep. So I think maybe it may have messed the transition of how they practice throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
And then him not being on there, maybe that's where the disconnect happened. But I think it was probably the game plan that got changed way too quickly, as they will have liked to. I would have thought that they would wanted to go and attack Houston much earlier to see what Houston's defense can carry, and maybe as the time progress, see how we can kind of slow it down a bit. And I think that early change may have completely guess we'll see, mess the game plan of
Mhm.
it. And then after that, there was no one else on the bench. You can look out and says, who's next as a midfield center mid?
Yeah.
Watts is more of a runner, get the ball, get it back. Creativity was like just seeing them three. I'm like, I don't know who will be the ball provider or is able to actually run to the defender, says center back, Wenzel pass me the ball and I will carry up the field. They would not have been any of those guys unless our best players was not available.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was just, I mean, overall, what did you take away from the Houston game? Is there anything positive you take away from that game?
No.
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 Me either.
It was promising to see our younger center back, right back, but I think I like to see them a little bit more like under pressure, to see maybe from another team that will actually pressure them a little bit more to see how they're doing. As a confidence booster, that works perfectly, right?
Yeah.
And JGL was also happy, showing, making sure he let everybody know, and the coach as well, that he's more comfortable at the CB. That tells you something where confidence is something that you cannot coach. So
No.
if somebody's comfortable in the back and he's feeling it now, just give him another run at it and see when he gets under pressure.
Yep. Yeah. No, 100%. And Mo, I just did a little bit of number crunching in Excel while we were talking about this. So we were talking about the roster spend.
Yes.
So right now, almost half of the roster is comprised of money of guys that were on the original 2023 team. So when you talk about an influx of money, the guys that have been signed or transferred or even loaned, they've put over $8.5 million of guaranteed compensation in players trying to upgrade this team. So, I don't think a lack of spending is the problem. I think it's probably, honestly, I don't know if it's where they've spent. To an extent, like what I mean by that is, I agree with bringing in Betcher. I agree with bringing in Twycert. I agree with bringing in Hartle. Morales was a signing that made sense at the time. Baumgartel has been an upgrade. Horn was really good for a while for us. So where those positions made sense, it's the fact that none of them have maximized their potential because of either being forced to play out of position or playing in systems that don't suit them. And that's why I think the return on investment, especially on Twycert, last year when he came in and had like 5 goals in 9 games or 5 contributions in 9 games, we were jumping for joy. This year he's been missing. But I don't necessarily blame him completely. I mean, what do you think?
Maybe not blaming, because that might be a strong word. I think it's probably the formation that is not playing at his best ability, which then translate of player not playing to 100%, right? And you can tell by their face sometime when a player is maybe not too sure about where they're playing. Where he's at, I don't think. I've always wondered why he was as almost like a striker position. He's not the one that's going to run you down the line and take you 1v1. So on the left, on the right, does not even make much sense to me. I'll probably would like to see him maybe as a 6. Hey, if Leuven is not there, he's a creative player. If he sees those open space, why not give him a little bit more of that opportunity to see what he can do, and give Silva or Celio a chance on those flank, because they are the dribblers. If you watch the other teams in the world that are doing so well, typically the dribblers are in the left or the right, if they have 2 of them, and the tall striker at the top. Man City was one, I guess we could say. But if you just watch a lot of them, like PSG, my team, you will see, Dembele is not in the middle. He's on the right side, because he will take you on. And then they have Desiree Doué on the left side. So come in, cut in, and then your
Mhm.
big target striker to do his thing.
Well, and that's why we see Celio out wide. Celio is a right-footed player, and what's his tendency? Cut in and shoot on the right. That's what he is. Let me ask you this: Would you classify? Because to me, I look at Cedric Toykert, and I look at him as a kind of a poacher. Like that's what I view him as. He's kind of that guy that's going to get in. He'll get like that's how many times he get goals? It was a second ball, a second shot, a deflection that landed at his feet. He's that guy that you get in the box and he'll poach those opportunities, and he's just not being put in those positions this season.
Yeah, so I guess the leftover from Klaus opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where he is, where just give him a little bit freedom for him to roam versus stay on your side and wait for in it. So I think he's not smiling as much, which for me it's a telltale thing when you're not having much fun. Things don't come at you easy.
100%. And I see there's a question in the chat from Ryan Freely. There was the player who got that got blocked. I don't know that I ever heard who he was, or if I did, I forgot. As I know there was conversation on one of the St. Louis City discords. I think it was the Chat City Tactics Discord about a transfer that was reportedly that may have not been approved by the league, but we never really got information on that, but on who that was. But I think speculation is certainly that it was a 6 or a defensive midfielder of sorts to provide extra depth. And I think that, and if that's really the case, the speculation on that is that the club's known what's going on with Edu, so you bring in another player with his profile, right? Like that would have just made sense. And it's, again, not a knock on Edu. I've said this earlier, Mo. He's doing what he needs to do. He's where he needs to be. Is it frustrating as a fan of the club? Sure. But as a human, as a person, you respect him and you know that it's right.
Oh yeah. There's no one should say anything about that part. I think pretty much the only thing you have to think about is if it's just a matter of time. I think if he decides to take a break from it, we've been in the world of football where there's people, the sports is one thing, but they all have life in between too, which there's things we cannot control in life, and we can lose all the games this season. It still wouldn't matter, right? Because it's family first. So no.
Yeah, and as we get into transfer season, Mo, I know the window opens in about a month. There was a link to a 19-year-old left back St. Louis City could potentially be looking after, who'd sign as a U22. I'm looking to see if I can track down the name. Michael Gergel. It's been vetted by both Tom Bogert and as recently as the 28th, Manuel Veth spoke on it, saying that he spoke to multiple sources. It definitely has legs. Nothing is imminent. He's described as, quote, a very good player who would fulfill many of City's needs in the window. But he throws in at the end, and this is the problem that I think everyone's going to jump at, Mo. Quote, the price tag is an issue. And I think Oscar, if he was here, he would tell you that is where the fans are mad. It's not that we don't spend, because we've gone over ad nauseum now the money we've spent and that we're 13th in the league in spending, but we don't pay transfer fees. And I think that's what has a lot of people frustrated. You don't think so?
Oh, what? The not paying transfer fees?
Yeah. You think, or do you think it's, or what were you going to say? And we'll come back. What were you going to say?
I think transfer fee a lot of the time these days are inflated, based on who you ask, who you talk to, and how many agents they have, and all of that. But now my question would be, I think what Klaus is, we did pay for him. So what difference would that really make if we pay the transfer fee or not? The only reason why a lot of the players do not have a transfer fee or go for free is that because they've put that in their contract before, or if most of the teams will sign a player for 3 years, even though they know that he will be there for just a year, just to protect themselves from them going for free. Liverpool fans were going crazy because Alexander went to Real Madrid for free because Real Madrid waited until his contract was over and said, "Hey, we're Real Madrid. Do you want to come with us? But we won't pay you guys anything." Mbappe went to Real Madrid. Even though they give him a huge pay, he went for free. The free is just based on how players structure their contract and how the team wanted to protect themselves.
Yeah, and I get that.
Us being cheap, people will be mad if you pay $5 million in transfer fee and then pay an extra $5 million to the guy playing, and then he does not perform as you would expect. So you got 10 million out versus 5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a great example of what we're talking about, Mo. Look at Atlanta United. They spent almost $50 million in the offseason bringing back Miguel Almiron. They bring in Emmanuel Latelaf. They have struggled. They have not worked out much at all. And I don't know. So it could be worse. That's a great point. My contention though is, I guess my thing is transfer. I don't want us to go out and spend crazy money in transfer fees. I want us to be okay spending a little bit of money on a transfer fee. I mean, we spent $800,000 on Jake Gerwood-Reich. I'm okay with that. He's making $300,000 salary, something like that this year. I'm okay with a little bit of a transfer fee now, or if it's a real game-breaking player, okay, fine. Go do that once, twice, whatever, fine. But my big thing is, I think you've got to look at where we're spending the money, and this comes into the Roman Berkey conversation. Right now, we spend more than any other club in MLS in goalies. When we're talking about how this team wants to spend moving forward, do you think it's worth spending the extra, say, $1 million on a keeper like Berkey, or do we shed some of that salary and pour it back into another striker, a right winger, a 6? What your thoughts?
I don't know. He saved us a lot of times.
Oh, right. I agree.
And he's the face of City when it comes to MLS marketing. Yeah. I'm sure that money that we are talking at this moment, I'm sure marketing wise and sporting wise, I'm sure we get that money or maybe get some extra money off of it because, hey, he's on the MLS thing, right? So he was an all-star for those years. Yep. This year makes total sense he's not because he was injured for half of it. So, yes, I think for our situation at this moment, since we're not so stable in defense as much, it is almost worth it to have a goalkeeper like that. But then that's when you then jump over the defenses is who we can pay in offense, forwards, or midfield to make that difference. I guess MLS have shown that the strikers have a lot more, or offensive players have a lot more success in MLS because the lack of spending in defense. So Klaus is doing his thing. We know the others surrounding himself are maybe younger and maybe not as seasoned as he is. So maybe Celio, Betcher, and all that need maybe a little bit more of a challenge with a more senior player, more seasoned player that will show them how it's done, right?
Yeah,
I think you do see some teams where when they have those type of players, they not only perform on the field, but they also perform with the players around them because they make them better.
Mm-hmm. And and Mo, I think what you said when you first joined, or right around that time, is spot on. And this is going to sound terrible, but the more it goes on, I think the worst thing that's happened to this club is how good we were the first season. Because it's really set an unrealistic expectation, because I think with this team we're at one of two. There either one of two things is true. Either this team is not as the players on the team are not as good as we think their ceiling is, or their floor is lower than we think it is, and they're closer to the floor than they are that ceiling. Like they're just either they're either not as good, or they're really, really, really much worse than we thought.
Or they maybe don't have the setup around, because I was even going through some of the addict crazy me. I was starting to look some of the previous games 2023, and the big difference that I'm seeing is that those names that we no longer have in the team were like the workhorse of the team, and they maybe were not the fans' favorites, but the Strauss of the world, right? He was, for 90 minutes, you knew that if he was on the field, he's going to do something. Either if it's a dribble, maybe it's a pass, or he's going to make somebody angry, or he's going to get a yellow card, right? So that takes a little bit of that pressure away from your top players, right?
Yeah.
Nelson, a lot of people are saying, for the first 5 games, everybody was happy, and you saw a little bit of here and there issues, right? Then everybody got trashed. But guess what? He went to another team this season after. He has a ring that no one else does.
Yeah.
So I think it was where that company, as our team is kind of changing a little bit, as of like a whole bunch of misfit for the first season that had something to prove, to now we're kind of transitioning of like, oh, well, we're supposed to be that team that should be winning with sort of big names on that roster. Because as you can see now, the wage is going up and up and up and up every season.
Yep.
Compared to the last one. So, and the younger guys that you see on this team probably don't have as much MLS experience as the guys that we have now.
And Mo,
so
I think that's
the biggest difference for me, is that MLS experience on those players that are not fans' favorite is totally different now than it was then.
So you mentioned the kids, Mo. I think my
cannot
question.
hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Hello, check 1 2. Can you hear me now? Yes, no, maybe so. No.
Is it me?
It might be you. I'm looking.
Hey, chat, tell me in there if you can hear
can
Jeremy,
you hear?
or if
Who
it's
can
just
we
me.
who can we hear? My mic shows it's registering volume, so I think I'm good. But it may be you. I'm not quite sure. Ryan, you might be the only one on the chat. Can you hear me, man? As we continue here entering the second hour of Top Corner Talk. Just trying to work through this a little bit. I'm looking here. It's you. Okay. So it looks like I'm still here. So it's Mo. That's all right. So Mo brought up the kids and playing this. And I think what I want to ask, and Mo, let me know when you're good to go. Because my question for you is about the kids. As we kind of reset a little bit, City, sitting 14th. We kind of talked through this earlier. I think it's time to spin it forward just a little bit, and talking about the kids is the right way to do it. To make the playoffs from where we are, City has to average more than 2 points a game. Just kind of resetting a little bit. Mo will rejoin, and I'll bring him back into the conversation. I do want to bring up one other piece of information, or one other comparison that I find interesting. So we're 5 games into the Critchley era, folks, with a 1-3-1 record. So 1-1-3. I'm sorry, 1 win, 1 draw, 3 losses for Critch. A team that's been much more exciting offensively than what we saw under Olaf, but also right back to the idea of being wide open in the back too. So less defensively stable, but way more entertaining in attacking football. And honestly, I think one of the very first things I thought, and I heard somebody say, was, man, it's like we're playing under Hackworth again. And the statistics, you would not believe in some ways just how many similarities statistically there are. And again, I know it's a short sample size because Critches only had about a fourth of the games that Hack did in terms of league MLS league play. But overall, I mean, he's on pace to be around the same difference if everything holds. Right now, Hackworth had a difference of -5 goal difference, Critches -3. Their shot differences, Hack had an exactly 30 shot deficit, so under Hack, City allowed 30 more shots than they took. Under Critch, they're about 15 or so, or 25. They're 25 fewer taken than what they've allowed. The expected goals a game, eerily similar. Hackworth side 1.64, Critchley 1.76, XG allowed 2.06 for Hack, 2.01 for Critchley. So if you look at this team and you think you've seen this again, you're not wrong. The eye test matches what we're seeing statistically. I know it's a small sample size, but it is eerily similar, the things that we see with these two guys, whether it was Hackworth when he took over for Carnell in the final 24 some odd games of the 2024 season, or what Critchley has done 5 games through this season. But, Mo brought up playing the kids, and, I think that's a great way to bring it back up as he rejoins. Mo, can you hear me? Are you good to go?
Oh, it's just, I don't know why my audio keeps changing to a different setup. So, yes.
You're good. But Mo, you brought up the kids, just kind of giving you a picture of where we are. So City right now, 15 points. The 45-point mark is where you normally get around to get to talking playoffs. Mm-hmm. City has to win at least 8 games to get there. I don't think that's happening, and I don't think I'm terribly off the mark in saying that. When is it time to play the kids? That's my question for you. Or do we?
We should, and we should have probably since the very beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're just limited time, right? And maybe it's one way to say, hey, you might be a starter, you might be the star, but maybe it's time for this kid to take over and see maybe their reaction from it. But we also saw that in the midfield, especially, right? We need guys that will run and maybe be a little bit more adventurous, right?
Mm-hmm.
What better players do you think will try to do things different other than the younger players?
Yeah. And I think it's about, I guess my question too is at some point they have to make a decision on who the manager is going to be next season, whether it's Critchley or not. And the challenge with that is we could sit here and say, okay, you know what? Let's let the homegrowns out. Let's get Caden some time. Let's Mackay come up, have some time. Let's get Miggy some time. Cam Silly again. You name the guy, McKenna, it doesn't matter. You name the guy, throw him in, whatever. The challenge is, that may be great because you can get an evaluation, but just because you evaluate him now doesn't mean the new manager is going to come in and rate that youngster the same way, right? Like that. I mean, it's great for their development, but it doesn't, to me, indicate that, oh, now this guy's going to be a starter next year or even necessarily get a supplemental roster spot, because it's all down to who the new manager is.
Yeah, and I think that'll be the part of being a professional soccer player. When there's a new coach coming in, but at least they will know that they are in the running for possibly being part of the first team, right? So when the first team coach will come in, right, they will see who is actually in that roster and those that typically come up with the first team, and they will still get a chance or a shot. We thought Melberg was going to do that because, as you remember in the publications, when he first showed up, the first team he went and meet was the academy kids.
Yep.
Right. So, and we all praise ourselves to, City has a plethora of players. We have kids, youth coming up and all that. The placebo effect of thing was Miggy, right? When he was playing with the first team, he scores with the first team. There was that excitement, but also production, right? So I think sometimes that's what also happens with having some, and we keep on saying kids, but they're actually professional players They are getting paid. And at the end of the day, if you watch some of the younger players in other teams or in the world are given the opportunity to show what they have, right?
Yep.
Even if it's a 15-year-old, 16, 17, 18, if you don't put him in that hot stove and say, let me see what you can do, then you'll never know. Yamal was at his age. Would you imagine if they said, you know what, let's keep you to move up with the 15 and then 18 and then 23, compared to like, hey, you're too good. Let's see what you can do.
Yep.
And I think some of those is where I think Makai is probably the closest player that we can always talk about, is that, yes, he's starting to show that he's probably a little bit too good for MLS Next Pro, but not also ready for, say, he's a starter, but a 10, 15 minutes every other game and then practice with the first team on a daily basis, it's almost works better for you. Or send him to a USL team or something that there's no restriction. So if you send him and they call him right back, then so be it. But at least he will also get to play against grown men. We saw the Miggy effect, right? He left a big, tall, skinny dude, and then he came back and he was almost a man, right? So I think they have to play to see where they are. If not, they're just.
No, you're right. I think with Joyner, my only hesitation is I don't know what does him better with development. Is it being around the first team and getting those spot starts, those sub appearances, or is it getting the consistent game time? And to your point, would the USL give him that step up in difficulty, or give him some step in development? For me, I lean more on the sides of consistent game time.
If it's with Next Pro, he's winning, he's scoring almost at will, and now he's also getting the national team experience as well, right? So you're starting to see the progression, and it's like, so what's next?
Well, and I think that's where we are. I think but do you think the team? So, admittedly, I think people would tell you that Miggy didn't get the game time or the minutes that we probably thought he would. At least that's the
from USL, absolutely.
Yeah. That's at least my perspective. Is I had assumption that they sent him there under the impression that he's going to get meaningful game time, and I almost wonder how the club, if they're going to go the route of, let's say, a USL loan, how do they guarantee that he's going to get those meaningful minutes? Like, does there have to be a clause in the transfer agreement? Like, I don't know how they work that out.
Birmingham was a garbage, hot mess. And I'm saying it because I actually know a lot of the stories that, all of that happened there. And even other players from Birmingham that I knew closely that were talking. And that was a debacle. That was a debacle from the team that he got dropped in. But I think if we watch the other, the Charleston teams, right? Those that are in the 11 that actually are showing you a little bit more of the professional experience of playing. I think that probably would have done him much better than Birmingham was. I won't say anything, but let's just say that it was a disaster.
Yeah.
But at the end, though, he did learn, to be away from family, be a professional away from your family, cook, clean, all of that. And he came back with muscles as well. So,
I mean, there's development there. It might not be what we were expecting, but you're right. I mean, there's value there. So, Mo, I talked to Charlie a little bit about Real Salt Lake. They're a team that's above us in the table. Do we play them on Saturday? Probably the biggest thing we've got going for them in this game is Diego Luna is away with the national team because the USA is playing in St. Louis on Wednesday. So he's their leading goal contributor, 10 goal contributions, the only guy on their squad with more than 5. So big break there. Do you have any expectations of a win? I think I broke it down. I need to find my little stat sheet I had written out here just for those who may have joined late. Real Salt Lake is 1-2-2 in their last 5, just 1 win. They actually have a losing record at home. They're 3-1-4. They've allowed they've allowed the second most goal, or I'm sorry, they've scored the second least goals. They are 29th in goals scored, 29th in expected goals, so they don't generate a lot. They're defensively better. They have allowed the 5th highest XG, but they've only allowed the 7th most goals. So they've allowed a lot of chances, but haven't actually conceded a whole lot. So without their leading scorer, maybe City gets a chance to get some points on the road. What do you think?
I don't know. City is playing with our emotions. So I guess the question for me is which City is going to show up. I think that's where I lean more. I didn't recognize him last game. I didn't recognize him the first 22 minutes against Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, who are we going to see on Saturday? Because
I think you saw 2 different things. So I think against Orlando, you saw a team that came out, wasn't ready to play, and they got embarrassed in the first half hour. Yeah. I think against Houston, you just saw a team that didn't show up at all, at least offensively. Defensively, they were fine. But I think it's all back to the midfield. And Charlie and I talked about it earlier before you could join. So we've been talking about the midfield being missing all season. And I don't know what the fix is. You suspect now Morales, they called it a concussion sub. He was wearing a sling, which usually means collarbone, which means an extended absence for Morales. You don't know when or if Leuven's going to be back. Do you call up a Cam Silly or something for a game like this, put in an extra City 2 guy in the midfield, or even a Miggy Perez to get somebody there that could be a 6? Because for me, I don't think you can use Akil and Vollum or Akil and Hartle or even Akil and Toyshirt. None of those are all defensive players. I really think if you're not going to have a ball playing center back available, you've got to have somebody that can play that role in front of them, not for defensive stability, but to help connect the passing lanes and get the ball moving. I mean, what do you think?
Absolutely. And I probably don't think that Leuven will travel with the team because it's like from what we're seeing recently. So, yeah, I think City 2 players, they're probably the one that should get a shot unless we get surprised with someone else, which I don't know who that could be to play.
Durkin could be back. I do remember Critchley said going into the game against Houston that if it may be in a week, we could see Durkin. So even if it's for a half, that has to make a difference, right?
Absolutely, yes. See if it first half, probably. I guess we'll have to see how he does with his injury, because the last thing we need is for him to aggravate it and then be out again for extended times when playing for a position that he was not meant to. Midfield usually, if it's either someone creative or someone that will run their tail off for a lot of the game. So if our maestro is not there and someone's maybe not ready to step up for that, then it should be solid defensively in the midfield. You can do passes. You're a soccer player.
Yeah.
Not difficult.
No, and I mean, and I hate to say it, and I know he's not, someone's going to yell at me for it, but I mean, God, if one of our normal center backs is back, do you consider JGR as a midfielder? I know he just said he prefers playing as a center back, but
I think if he has to, I think he will do it. Yeah. He might come and find you, but other than that,
I'm here.
If he find you, just ask for a picture.
That's right. But don't post it on social media.
Well, if he comes to you, it's a different discussion, right?
This is true. Ryan Fraley is dropping Chat City Tactics references in the chat tonight. Let me tell you.
Well,
yeah, but He's right. There's a Discord channel about who's the hospital sick house. I forget what language. Is that Swedish or some kind of
No.
Scandinavian for hospital?
I, I, so I
But he's
think
not
it will
wrong.
be tricky. I just
Yeah.
don't. I don't know.
Look, I
I-
want to go. Thank you, Ryan, for Swedish. Okay, hence Olaf. That makes sense. Okay, and all. Okay, Mo, I look at this matchup on paper and I say maybe City can do something. Maybe there's a way. I mean, now Real Salt Lake does not allow goals. They allow a lot of chances, but not a lot of goals. I just wonder, can we exploit that? And since they're without their leading contributor, does the matchup put itself in a direction where City can somehow sneak away and get 3 points on the road, which would be a shock probably for me. I'm not going to say it's not possible. I look a week ahead to Portland and I don't have any hope for that game, or even going, if I'm honest. But I think I have a little more faith that we get points against Salt Lake. So maybe I say a 1-0 win. Somehow we squeak out a win and do something on the road.
Yeah, I try not to put too much stock on them not having their best player, because last time we thought Colorado didn't have Mihalovic, and you know what happened? Someone else
That's fair.
stood up. But you know what? I'm guess always the optimistic by heart, I guess, when it comes to my team. So maybe we'll grind it out till 1-0. I think that could be close to reality.
I mean, and I think it's a must win. This is the only team we have 2 games against left. So I mean, if there's any hope of staying alive, I think you have to win. I mean, if you lose this game just mathematically, in real time here, I could say that if you lose this game, I think you have to go. Yeah, mathematically, you basically can only lose one more game the entire year. If you lose this game, you would have to go. You would have to go either 9-3-1, 9-4-0, or what 8-6-0. Yeah, so or not even that wouldn't even get you to 45, or that would get you there. So I mean, you're really backs against the wall now. This is to me a must win game.
Yeah, that's not good. They have not shown us in any of our 3 years that a must win game was won just yet. So I
don't know. I just think it's time to start looking at the future and figuring out what you got, whether it's evaluating the guys who are on the roster that could be off of it at season's end, or it's calling up kids and using some of the guys from City 2 to maybe get a sense of, okay, who might, and that's the thing. Just saying they're ready isn't a bad thing either. It's a good way to evaluate. It doesn't mean that you have to make the decision whether it's for Critchley or another manager. It's just assessing your talent and where your academy is in that growth of player development.
Yeah, that's all it is. 10-15 minutes is not going to hurt anything. Nope. But it could be beneficial to see where they are. In the roster change, I'm still iffy on how much change can happen. But also there's always that balance, right? So there's big players, big salary, but also there's what we call the squad players that practice. During practice, they are there for that, and also push come to shove when we need them at times. So even if they're saying, hey, those 4 or 5 guys that's may have not played their best football for us, but at least they were still there healthy. And the big thing is healthy to play and at least give us a chance in it. May have not performed like we want them to, but at least they made themselves available
Mm-hmm.
compared to some that weren't available.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's
you're 100% right.
goes both ways.
No, it does. And you talk about those squad guys. Maybe that is the role of Nikhil Watts. If you deem you don't have the somebody ready to step up into a supplemental roster spot, maybe you re-sign Nikhil Watts. He'll be cheap. He'll be an affordable rotation player. I'm looking at the other players who are out of contract at the season's end. Of those that are, we're going to have conversations about Berkey. Durkin, I think, has an option, but he'd be out of the U22, so he'll be more expensive next season. Kessler is a free agent. Klaus has an option, but would be that you could buy down and free up a DP slot. Lunt is intriguing because he's cheap, but then if you keep Lunt, what does that say about Oliveris? And outside of that, you've got Akil Watts, Josh Yarrow, and then a decision on Conrad Vollum. The one name too, as we talk about transfers out, Mo, I thought about this. So Cedric Toykert is out of contract next June. If there was a time to try to sell him, would it be now?
Yes, if he maybe started to performing a little bit like the guy that we know. Because at this moment, there will not be much people knocking at the door.
Yeah.
Unless he was maybe a little bit younger.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm going to be intrigued to see what Lutz and everyone does. Because there's a few players there. Kessler, Berkey, Klaus, the big three I could think of, at least from a defensive standpoint, unless they deem they don't want to spend, over $1 million on a center back, then you presume Kessler would be gone.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Even if you look at the roster, even if there's a big shift, there's not that many players that we're talking about that you can move out, except maybe the Bloom and the Pedro that are not technically have not played for the team. So yes, those could be moved, but those that were actually playing that maybe have not met people's expectations. We're talking about 3 or 4 players.
So Alm, Bloom, let's see who else. Horn is already gone.
Yeah.
Maybe Durkin. I don't know. Some people rate him, some don't. Morales probably gone.
Yeah, probably.
Jean Day probably gone. Conrad, if we don't pick up his option to purchase, and then Akil and Josh.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's not a big turnaround, and a lot of these changes, if you want to do it, it's going to be very expensive.
That's a great call. That's a great point, because of the guys that are not out of contract, you presume everybody stays. So the guys that you have for at least another year, Baumgartel, Betcher, JGR, your homegrowns, which are Glover, Joyner, and who else? Pierce.
Yes.
And then you've got Hebert is under contract. You've got Mackay Joyner under contract. You've got Leuven. Nilsson, you could see a buyout, maybe. Nilsson and Ostrak.
But you should.
Yeah. Nilsson, Ostrak. Yes. Most of these guys, you look at this, Mo, that's a great point. Of the guys you're moving out, outside of Klaus and Berkey and maybe Durkin and Kessler, there's 4 starters. So 7 of your 11 are still under contract. So you're really talking 4 starting positions and then depth.
Yeah. And that will be quite expensive if you want to make those changes.
Yeah.
If you think it should be a clean house.
That's a great point. I'm so glad you I didn't think about it in that lens. That's a great shout, dude. That really is a great shout.
So that's why I was trying to just tell people as well, right? Oh, we're expecting a huge shift, right? No, the huge shift usually is 1 or 2 players, especially in a league that is so tight in how you do things. It's usually 1 or 2. Outside of MLS, when you can do whatever you want, yes, you can get rid of a whole bunch of players. There's teams that find creative ways to get more money. They sell their hotel rooms. They sell their parking lot, they sell their building so they can get more money and buy new players. Here, I don't remember any team yet in MLS. Maybe Miami, it looks like they were able to move a whole bunch of pieces, but they also have special rules for them on that aspect. But
That's fair.
if you think about it, right? Look at these. So if somebody says, "Oh, your old center back was making $1 million," and then you go and get a new one, and it was like, so comparable. This is who you were paying Nielsen. This is how many games he's played. This is this and that. This is his stats. I'm a new center back. This is how much time I've played. This is my contribution. This is my XG, blah, blah, blah. If you pay him this much, why ain't you paying me that? And then
100%.
So, right. So the negotiations just keep on going. And that's why Atlanta is paying all that money, because they said, hey, you send this guy, you ship this guy, you've made this X amount of money. There's your Atlanta tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's what's going to happen now with Leuven. I'm sorry with Lutz and all that, is that maybe sometime in the negotiation table is like, hey, you look at all of our players, they were free transfers. You look at all our players, this is how much we paid them. This is this and that. So I would love my city to play a Chelsea and say, you know what? We want to win today, so let's spend $1 billion. I will be happy about it, but I'm being real, and I don't think that's going to happen, especially for St. Louis. Maybe once they break even, or a new owner, or we add additional owners in the group, that everybody puts a certain amount of millions to put it. Or you're the Atlanta Archer, which we know he's a wealthy billionaire NFL, U.S. soccer guy, and he can spend that money.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And I was looking at there was a Google Doc put together. I was looking for it again because it was put together by one of the guys from in the Chat City Tactics Discord, and it was really interesting because it had all of the reported and then confirmed transfer fees that City has paid. Since you were bringing that up, I know we paid $800,000 for JGR. I believe the transfer fee for Klaus was somewhere in the region of $3.5 million. I'm trying to think what we paid for Totland, because I know we paid a fee for him as well. But I'm trying to see if I can find that again. But in any event, and that might be something we can just, we can always bring up at another time. I thought it was really interesting to kind of see, because I think, again, people say we're cheap, and no, we haven't spent big in transfer fees outside of Klaus. He was the biggest, and then JGR, but JGR is a U22, so
we did not. I think that the right term is we did not splash money on the player. Cheap is a whole nother discussion. Cheap is Montreal. Cheap.
Fair. That's fair.
But
so I'm gonna look that up. Go ahead.
But also, I was just looking at Twitter, or X, or whatever you call it. But one thing that is amazing to see is look at that goalkeeper right there.
Which goalkeeper? Sorry.
That's Boomer from Al Hilal.
Oh, yeah. Okay, got it.
Yes. Yeah. Look at that stop right there. He literally stopped that right there.
Well, that's insane. Madness.
He was the man of the match, of course, because he plethora of goals. But
I mean, that's insane. What a save!
I'll probably I went.
No, that's what a save! That's incredible.
Oh no, yes, but I guess to kind of close that out, because I think maybe is that I know it is City is not in a favorable time, but I think there's another team that has it worse than us at this moment. But we also have to tap out of it. Yes, we all want to win. I want to win. I'm used to teams that win a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But also I look things maybe a little bit deeper when it comes before reacting to some situations.
Yeah.
Where City is a how we can call it Leicester City like in the APL, where we're trying to survive at this moment with the big boys, which you clearly sees what happens at this moment.
I guess part of the frustration, Mo, I think of is there's still fans that are vocal about the ticket prices, and that's what I think the where the conversation gets messy, because ticket prices are extremely high, but we're not splashing the money in the transfer market. So looking at it, Klaus was 3.2, Leuven was $1 million, JGR was 800,000, Totland was 500,000, and we paid 300,000 for Jabulo Blom. And then 250 for Betcher, 50,000 for Lund. So, I mean, we've only got 3 transfers that are 800,000 or higher, which we're in year 3, right? So maybe expectations for blowing that. I mean, I think the comparisons of like, well, what did San Diego spend? Look at San Diego's stuff versus what we're doing. And that's what I think clouds a lot of it too.
Yeah, but
how many owners do they have, right?
Yeah,
that was your point.
Yes, and I heard those, but we're also talking about a ownership team right now that whoever started it, I forget his name, has a academy that's the Right to Dream Academy. They literally have clubs in 3 continents. He's a billionaire. He's much richer than our owners.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she's billionaire family, but he's a billionaire family.
Right.
And those connections are different, right? They have a system of how they can recruit players, and they're in San Diego as well, which helps. But these are not new people that came in. It's not an NFL coach, NFL owner that says, "I want an MLS team, and here it is."
Mm-hmm.
Those are like, they wanted to win. They put the money in.
Yep.
They have a freaking academy where kids will be sleeping, eating, training there. Like, how many the St. Louis have one of those? No, we're taking players from other academies that are already built them. These guys have. I wouldn't be surprised if they would have picked some of their players from their Dream Academy and says, "Here, do it."
Yep.
I mean, so I think it gets clouded. And as you can see, the players that they've spent money on, we're not talking $1 million.
No.
We're not. They have an MVP now in the race for MVP.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if the season today, what is his name? Their midfielder, Anders Dreyer. Would likely win MVP. He's been phenomenal for them. But I mean, and that's what City. I mean, I think I think a lot of people expect Hartle to be Dreyer too. You know, and maybe if we figure out the system and the players around him, it'll unlock him. I think that's the thing is we don't have enough. And I don't want to say, God, I hate to say it this way, but maybe Olaf was right about some of the quality in this team. When that's one of the takeaways I've had from this season is the more it wears on, the deeper you get down the depth chart. Like, really, do we have the players to play the way we say we want to play in all these cases? And maybe Olaf wasn't as crazy. I'm going to get run off the internet for saying it, but I start to wonder sometimes.
Well, it was not based on what he needed, maybe, yeah. But I think it was just a different system that they're playing. A lot of people was saying, "Who is that coach?" They were making fun of him during the draft when he was picking players that no one had no clue what he was doing. So clearly, all of a sudden, oh wait, snap! What? They're in the top, and they have a possible MVP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well, I guess this is the welcome to MLS that I got.
mm-hmm. So
So
I don't know, Mo, but I mean, I'll tell you, man, it's been a fun almost 3 hours. We're at 2 hours and 45 minutes on
for
tonight's
you,
show. I think we've. Nah, I just won't shut up. It's my own fault. But I don't know if you have anything else. I think I've talked enough about everything under the sun. But what else do you have, if anything, my friend?
no, I other than that is that everybody keep showing up to the games. Yes, I know it's difficult. Ticket prices, like people are saying, if you wait to closer to the game, they still half decent. Um, but we've been around the sport for too long. We support other teams as well. We all have seen the up and down of being a football fan, soccer fan. So it's just enjoyed it. Keep on coming back to Top Corner Talk. To come in, hang out with us guys. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring the whole crew one of these days. Hopefully, and make it even a lot more fun. But if you enjoyed all the great stats that Jeremy and Charlie went over, we'll bring back the hot takes when Oscar recovers from all the work he's doing. And, just enjoy football. Watch the FIFA Club World Cup. You will learn something, and it's fun. You get to. And I guess maybe we'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah, and it's great to see that. I'll admit, seeing some of these Brazilian teams that I had never watched or don't ever get to watch because I don't watch the Brazilian league at all. It's been interesting. It's been fun to see teams from countries that I don't normally watch outside of like England, Germany, and Spain, and the MLS. Like that's the cool part about this. And yes, good plug for Wednesday in St. Louis, semifinal of the Gold Cup, United States against Guatemala, who upset Canada on penalties. U.S. advancing on penalties over Costa Rica. By the way, Keylor Navas and Matt Freese, that was a showdown in the shootout. Both of those keepers making the clubs work to advance. But the U.S. in St. Louis, so come on out if you can make it. Tickets aren't friendly right now. They're even higher than city tickets. So I doubt that I will be there very much. But if you can swing it, it doesn't hurt your wallet too much. Get out and make some noise. Support the USA as they try to make the finals of the Gold Cup again. And Mo, it's been fun as always talking to you and to Charlie. And yeah, I can't wait to talk to Oscar again. I know he's recovering from a long trip that included games in the Club World Cup.
Yep, and working and all that. So yes, it's been fun. But yes, Navas, you guys definitely have to watch him play, even though he's coming towards retirement. But Real Madrid, all that, wanting trophies left and right. If you want to see a top-notch goalkeeper, that's why I'm kind of excited to be able to see him live before he retires, because he doesn't get enough credits and enough flowers for what he's been doing between those poles. So, yes.
All right. Well, Mo, if you're good, I'm good. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, let us know too. This has been a little bit different of a show. We did talk about the games, of course, but we did a deep dive into salary stuff. Is that information that you guys enjoy seeing or hearing? If it's too much, too little, if there's I want to know what you guys are interested in. And it interests me, of course. I'm a nerd, so I love the numbers. but yeah, keep us honest. We want to bring you content that you enjoy and that you want to listen. But of course, like, comment, subscribe. You've got Mo. You've got Charlie, you've got me, you've got Oscar, we've got Top Corner Talk on Twitter, Blue Sky, we've got Mo Football, you're on X, I think you're on Blue Sky, Charlie's on X and Blue Sky, I'm on X and Blue Sky, Lighthouse Media, Charlie's writing for Utes. So we're all over, but Monday nights, we're here. And we thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things. And Mo, I love it as always, my friend.
All right. Yes, always. And thank you all for those that are already subscribed. We're at 71, so it's moving on up. I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get to that 100. And I think if you are paying attention to all of our social, make sure you stay close, because there are some giveaways coming up. I'll be posting the pictures of them very soon, and we'll make it. Let's reach 100, and then it'll be an even bigger gift. But with that said, have a blessed day, have a good night, and either see you on Wednesday or hear from you on Wednesday. Peace.